What's mine? Getting a computer?
Working on it.
I don't know if our.
You excited. I know, my son did it all the time. Yeah.
I like it for 50.
Yeah, my computer is being worked on. I'm here.
Fluoride. No, no, but you don't.
Yeah.
It's not.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's federal law, so like the federal, you don't have it.
No, so you. Hello.
We don't have to.
I wasn't leaving you. No. No, we would think.
Percentage.
We just want that. I mean.
All right, okay. All right.
Thanks.
No problem, thank you.
You are the. Exciting. Yes, I did. Stop that. Oh, I think. What? Me too. Reverse. Come over here. You know,
And now? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah.
There you go, there you go. They're gonna do that in your house. But why? After Recording in progress. In progress.
What was it?
Now we're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting of January 23rd, 2024 at 7:07. Please have roll call.
Commissioner Drosky,
Here.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Parnas, Mayor Gantz.
Here. Please stand for the moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the regular city commission meeting of December 12th, 2023.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Mayor Parnas, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for the African American Heritage Board meeting minutes of July 13th and September 14th of 2023. The Education Advisory Board meeting minutes of October 4th, 2023. Planning and Zoning Board meeting minutes from December 7th, 2023. Community Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes of December 13th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, approval of our agenda for January 23rd, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, Please click Raise Hand at the bottom under your Actions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you. First item we have up tonight is a certificate of recognition by our Chief of Police, Captain Hofstein.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished commissioners, Mr. City Manager, and citizens of Deerfield Beach. Always my honor and privilege to be here. I thank you for the opportunity to once again recognize the fine work that our deputies are doing here in Deerfield Beach. I actually have several certificates, which are still just a small sampling of the amazing work that they're doing every day. These are several incidents that occurred over the span of merely just 10 days that I want to bring to everybody's attention. First was on January 9th of this year. Deputy Marchena, that's in the middle, and Deputy McKenna on the left were patrolling when they observed two suspicious males crouching behind the bushes near Southeast 13th Court. Upon further inspection, they observed a door ajar on a silver Mercedes that was nearby. Both subjects were observed near the open vehicle while wearing dark clothing and gloves. Deputies attempted to make contact with the subjects, but surprisingly, they fled upon sight of the deputies. But these deputies were not going to allow this escape to happen. These deputies immediately set up a perimeter, coordinated with our aviation unit and K-9. And a short time later, one deputy was apprehended by Deputy McKenna. I'm sorry, one suspect was apprehended by Deputy McKenna after attempting to outrun him. And the second subject was apprehended by K-9. Both suspects were safely taken into custody, and obviously, much not to anybody's surprise, it was determined that they indeed were burglarizing that vehicles, and detectives, upon interviewing these suspects, were able to clear additional cases. So just a great example of proactive police work, not even responding to a call for service, but out there in the community patrolling like we expect them to, and doing a very good job of it. Thank you. That's just one. The next day, these deputies were back in action. It almost reads like the first. Deputy Marchena and McKenna, very similar names, coincidentally, were conducting proactive patrol again when they observed another suspicious vehicle. This again, this one was occurring off of Southwest 11th Way at one of our motels. Upon approaching the vehicle, deputies made contact with the occupants, and based on their keen observations, they determined that there was possibly narcotics in the vehicle. And based on that probable cause, they conducted a search of the vehicle, which revealed 207 grams of narcotics, along with a multitude of baggies, a scale, and a ledger, surprisingly, documenting narcotic sales. So the second night, this duo here took drug dealers off of our streets. Both were charged accordingly and taken to the main jail. Let's get Deputy Blackson in on the action here. A couple days later, deputies did respond to an egregious act on our beach, right off of 2nd Street in front of Wales Rib. There was an incident that involved a battery on an elderly woman who was found laying on the ground, bleeding from her head and unconscious. While on scene, 2 independent witnesses advised that the suspect and the vehicle had fled the area and gave the direction of travel. Deputy Blackson, being very observant and was circulating the area, located the vehicle almost immediately and attempted a felony traffic stop. The vehicle failed to yield and a pursuit was initiated. The pursuit came to a halt within our city at the 1300 block of Federal Highway. Note the span of distance that a safe pursuit was conducted, and the suspect bailed out and ran on foot. Not to get too far, of course. Deputy Blackson gave chase, took the suspect into custody, and also discovered a bag that he dropped nearby, which contained a firearm. So you can imagine how much worse the situation could have been, and especially if it was not for Deputy Blackson's vigilance, this dangerous suspect would still be on our streets. Our violent crime detectives responded, and the victim was determined to have a brain bleed, but fortunately, she is going to recover. So, not to be one-upped, these deputies all sprang back into action again just a short time later on the 22nd off of I-95 and 10th Street. Deputies located a stolen vehicle traveling on the southbound ramp into our city. Deputies covertly and smartly began following the vehicle from a safe distance, effectively coordinated BSO aviation and K-9. And once they had everybody in position, they were able to move in on the vehicle. The vehicle came to a halt off of Carambola Circle where the occupants all bailed out. A perimeter was established and nicely with the assistance of Coconut Creek PD, this is occurring in their city. So started in Deerfield, ended in Coconut Creek. Our K-9 along with Coconut Creek K-9 apprehended all of the suspects and the stolen vehicle was recovered. So again, and obviously as everyone jokes, I could stand up here all night and tell you continuous and never-ending amazing stories of what these deputies are doing every night. But this is just a great sample, and for that, I am very proud to bring them before the commission and the city and congratulate them on being selected as Deputies of the Month.
A selfie would be nice.
Good job.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
Okay, we are now at public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have public comment on an item that is on tonight's agenda, the time to do it is after I read the title into the record. Then public comment period for that item is open, and no comments shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibility shall be permitted.
Did you want to speak now?
You want to speak on this?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Is there anyone from the public online?
Okay.
Former Representative Clark Reed, go right ahead.
Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. Mayor and Commissioners, I am just concerned about the code enforcement. I put in a complaint over a week ago, and up until now, I have not heard anything from that complaint. I'd just like to know how long it takes code enforcement to get to your complaint once you put it in. Is there a time period that's attached to the complaint that says they must answer the complaint in a certain number of days? I'm just questioning that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good afternoon. Sandra Jackson, 386 Southwest 35th Avenue. I'm coming up here because I was concerned. I know an incident happened last week with the last commission meeting, but there was some comments, which I was one of the ones to step out the door, that made a comment that someone who was not in the meeting anymore, they had a grandson that was in jail for rape and he used to work for the city. I knew it wasn't me or my grandchild, and I assume it probably was directed to someone else. Those comments, because someone come up here and make a comment, I don't think that's right, that someone should be able to say that. And you guys have to be careful what you say because it could be considered defamation of character. Because I think the person you might have was speaking about has the same last name. And their grandchild, I guess someone told her, was too young to even be in jail or do rape during that time. So please, let's make sure we do respect each other. And we do have a right to come up here and make comments, but we got to stop using family members. I'm quite sure you guys up there too, just as well as we all have family members that have done wrong. And not everybody is perfect, but that has nothing to do with the person who's speaking because someone action because of their action. I just want to make sure you guys correct that and be mindful of what you say. Okay,
you.
thank you.
My name is Willie Rosetta Graham Bracy. I live at 501 Northwest First Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida. And I'm up here because I'm kind of upset because I don't really think that the code people should send you a letter to make you open your shutters. I mean, like the crime is over there where we live at. And I have accordion shutters. And I got 30 days, so I'm not gonna open my shutters because too much of crime and too much of funny people be walking by my house. And I'm not gonna open my shutters. I just have to take the consequences. And the fence, when it was bad weather, was my the wind blew the gate, the boards, some of the gates off the fence, the boards off the fence. So my husband is sick, but he wouldn't let nobody fix it. So he was taking his time to fix it. He got it fixed now. And for a little piece of like about an 8x6 fence, they gave us, they cited us for that. And my, and I think I maybe got this solution done because my husband cannot push that heavy can because it's too heavy. If he pull it back, it's gonna pull him on the ground. So those smaller cans that we had, there was the ideal person, cans for a senior citizen. But these 95-pound cans is too heavy for older people when they're sick to try to put their foot on that thing and pull them cans back. It'll pull them on the ground. Because I see it on television all the time. Those old people be pushing those garbage cans and the garbage can fall back on them. And if nobody's out there watching them, that could be a deathly thing for senior citizens.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33442. At the last meeting, one of the citizens had inquired about putting fencing around new homes in Florida. I did a little research and I saw that Florida state law does not require homeowners to build fences around their property, and neighbors don't have to divide their land with fences, but Florida does require fences to be built around any public or private pools or jacuzzis, anything with water, as any type of water features like spas and hot tubs, fences need to be built around them. So I just wanted to bring that up from last meeting. I also wanted to bring up something that Commissioner Dropsky, I'm sorry, it's been a long day, had brought up about our schools, the 7 public schools in Deerfield Beach, all Cs and Ds. And I agree that's horrendous. But I also want to bring up that there is a Florida state bill, 7004, that was brought up by one of the state senators in Florida that is actually going to the House right now. And I just wanted to just touch on that a little bit. This bill, again, it's SB 7004, would make changes to state assessments and instruction. Specifically, this bill would remove a requirement that high school students pass the state's 10th grade English arts exams in order to graduate. Instead, the exam would count for only 30% of the student's final course grade. And this measure, State Bill 7004, would also do away with any requirement that students need to pass an Algebra 1 end of course exam in order to earn a diploma. And I think that brings up to a lot of what's happening with our schools right now, that the grades are going down because we're getting potential legislation like this that will water down requirements. Now, we're all old school, all right? I'm the baby boomer generation. You remember what it's like when you had to have these tests. And I think it gives a standard. If we water down these tests, it's going to really hurt the generations going to school right now and being put in the public. The English won't be as good. Their analytical algebra, math skills won't be as good. So I think that maybe we should, and again, just a suggestion, maybe do some type of measures. If you agree, saying, I don't think that's the right thing to pass Florida State Senate Bill 7004. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night to all. Patricia Saunders, 252 Southwest 34th Avenue. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment rights, I'm just going to be reading a little bit to remind the commissions. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress or grievance. The First Amendment rights of the American people must be protected. And tonight I will be talking about one particular clause, which is the right of speech. Americans are free to speak their minds openly and freely without fear or punishment from government official. Maybe the commission has a group of people in the city they don't like, and they use the power of the government to restrain certain individuals or group from speaking. And I would like to ask the commission, have the city contracted any government official to violate the First Amendment rights of such individuals or groups? And have you contracted any government officials directly or indirectly to violate any Bill of Rights? Those who violate the Bill of Rights shall be held accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. Joel Smith, Deerfield Beach Community Cares, 959 Southeast Sixth Avenue, Deerfield Beach. Following up what this gentleman said a few speakers ago, I invited everyone to a town hall meeting tomorrow evening. Flyers are all over the room. We are all concerned, I hope we are all concerned about the quality, status, and opportunity that our children are having in the educational system and the challenges to that system by a variety of laws. The superintendent will be there tomorrow night, and a number of district leaders will be there. It's incumbent upon us to make our voices heard so that our children benefit in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public then.
Sorry, I thought the lady was.
It's closed to the public, sorry. Of course, Mr. Hurst, go ahead. We'll reopen.
I really thought she was getting up to speak. Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. The mismanagement taking place in Deerfield Beach goes on. In the space of only 2 months, both the Assistant Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Financial Officer of Deerfield Beach have resigned. Perhaps City Manager David Santucci would like to inform the taxpayers.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Just refer to him as the city manager.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps City Manager would like to inform the taxpayers who is now in charge of the city's finances. Is it the city manager? Is it a Robert Half temporary worker? Or maybe the Davenport Consulting Group is now fully in charge? With the city on the verge of trying to sell millions of dollars in bonds, I am sure the rating agencies will be thrilled to learn about these resignations. More mismanagement was evident in the recent decision by the city to pay out almost $1 million to purchase a piece of beachfront land that no one else would ever buy. The city manager said the city will just take the money to pay for this out of our reserve account. So in one shot, the city manager just spent almost 5% of our cash reserves. Remember the outcry from the commissioners during the budget process just a few months ago over how there was no way to take money out of reserves to give back even a penny to the taxpayers to reduce the operating property tax millage rate. The taxpayers were told by Commissioner Parnes that there were big storms brewing out in the Atlantic, so we couldn't risk going into our cash reserves. We were told by Commissioner Drosky that city services would have to be curtailed if we gave any property tax relief to the taxpayers by touching our reserves. But now only a few months later, it is perfectly fine and no problem to touch our reserves. What is even more galling was the city manager revealing to the taxpayers in December that the city would be receiving back $1.9 million from the failed Siemens Energy Savings Contract. Instead of using that $1.9 million to help pay for the beach land purchase, the city manager decides to start something called an energy reinvestment strategy, which he knows will be very hard for the taxpayers to follow how this $1.9 million of the taxpayers' money will really be spent. At the last commission meeting, Mayor Gans made disparaging remarks about me when he said the following after I gave my opinion as a taxpayer on the city's lawsuit against Tula Amana and her Pier restaurant. And I quote, "I hope you are getting paid by them because it certainly seems you are working overtime on it. For the record, I have not received 1 penny from anyone for voicing my opinion, not from Tula Amana nor Danielle Rossi for that matter. My reason for speaking on this case is solely to expose the truth about what goes on at the highest level of government in Deerfield Beach and the corruption that takes place. From the first time, may I have another minute, please? From the first time I spoke at a commission meeting until now, my sole purpose is to always do what is in the best interest of the taxpayers and point out spending or policies that run against the city's own organizational chart, which has at the top of the chart only one word: citizens. It is truly a shame that the people who have sat on this dais the longest have forgotten whose best interest they are supposed to be looking out for. If you can remember whose interests you are supposed to be looking after, then perhaps one day you will be able to take that elusive victory lap you wanted to take at the last commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. Julie Rodriguez, 150 Southeast 7th Street. I have one comment and one question. My comment is just before I left my home today, I was watching the news, and then on the news, it did say that the schools in Broward would be opening August 12th, and we had a 0.4% increase of Black and Hispanics graduating from high school, which I think that is very good. I'm sorry, whatever areas. Now, that was just my comment. Now, my question is, because of Surfside, I understand, I live in a condo, and we had to hire an architect to go through all the units and decipher what's going on, and because of Surfside. And I'm concerned because we got a letter from the city, and we had to immediately get an architect and hire and pay. Now, we paid him, and now I don't know how long it's going to take, since there's so many condos in Deerfield. How long is this going to take for this process to go on and on, inspecting the roofs? They want to go inside and inspect electrical. I just don't know how long is this going to take, and is this something from Deerfield Beach that we have to do? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Commissioners and Mayor.
I'm sorry, give
Janet.
the address for the.
Yes, Janet Castro Giovanni, 1523 Hillsborough Boulevard, in Deerfield. I just heard, I don't know whether this is true, but there was a contamination of the water supply, that people are supposed to boil their water, and if so, where is it and what is the problem? That's my question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Rosie.
Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public then. Answer a couple of questions, and the one that's most pertinent, I'd imagine, contamination of the water supplies or anything.
Wasn't us.
I know of no, good evening, Mayor and Commission. I know of no contamination in the city's water supply or the city of Deerfield Beach itself. I did see that recently there was a boil water notification for Lighthouse Point. Perhaps that is what Ms. Giovanni is talking about, but nothing that I'm aware of.
Yeah, can you also answer the question regarding the 40-year plan and Ms. Rodriguez's comments?
Sure. So the state legislature has a 40-year inspection requirement on condos and now a 25-year inspection. So I'm not sure which particular inspection this was for her condo, but it's not mandated by the city, it's mandated by the state. And it would have been a structural engineer who would have gone through the building to check that they would have had to hire. Those inspection results are provided back to our planning and development services department. And anything that the structural inspector finds, there's a time period in which the condo association has to remedy those issues. And we work with each condo on any of those issues that they do find. But her board should be aware of this, and if she has any additional questions, Mr. Powers in the back can address that.
Mr. Powers, yeah, if you want to make a comment?
Sorry, I did provide her my information. She can contact me tomorrow. I'd be happy to look at it. So we are in the process right now. We have submitted all the letters for the 25-year inspections required by the county, the state, but the county gives us the information. So if anyone is having a problem with obtaining an architect or the surveys or any of the other nature, we do have a process to allow for an extension that goes through our building official. So additional time can be given if requested.
Excellent. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. You have his contact number, so please reach out to him. Regarding, I think there seemed to be some confusion about the suggestion that was brought up about fencing around new homes. That fencing was to be more of screening for dirt and that was around a home when it was being constructed. I believe that that's what the gentleman that the other day brought up, and that's what that was about. So I think there might be some confusion on that. And no one's requiring anyone to put up mandatory fencing or suggested, I don't believe, to do that. As far as code enforcement, we do have the option with larger cans that if someone has, wants a smaller can, they're allowed to have that. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Look, there's going to be some bumps that are going to happen with this new rollout. There's already a lot of confusion, and there's going to be some mistakes that are made. So please reach out to us, let us know when that comes up. But you can request a smaller can if you'd like, rather than having the large can. As far as code enforcement and their time period, I guess I don't understand the question. I will follow up with the representative as far as specifically what they mean, but they should be, once code enforcement's called on something, they should be going out and checking on that immediately. Whether they follow up with the complaintee, I think that really depends on the situation. Up here in debates, it's ironic when you hear things that you've been up here long enough to hear some history on some stuff that comes out, and it is interesting when people take certain positions, and in the debate, sometimes things are said that are unnecessary. So if there's anything that I said that insulted someone as far as bringing up the fact that it was ironic that someone was debating a policy when one of the relatives, had a very serious crime that hopefully would have been prevented by enacting this policy, it was unnecessary on my part. So for that, it shouldn't have been said. It was really irrelevant. To the point is, as far as restraining freedom of speech, we have no contract to violate the Bill of Rights or anything like that. As a matter of fact, we allow everybody to pretty much have as much time as they like. I don't think I've restricted, very, very few times have I restricted anyone, but we do lay out rules. There are rules to follow, and if you can't follow them, then you're causing a disruption. So the rules are simply, you cannot address commissioners personally. You cannot have people pointed out in the public to stand up on something you're talking about. Anytime something like that happens, you're going to be corrected. And all it's a matter of steering someone and saying, look, continue with what you're saying, but you just can't use those methods to go about it. Prime example was tonight. Mr. Hers stood up and said that. What he did, and I just redirected him, and we just moved on. It is ironic to hear this, someone talk about disparaging remarks when that's all they seem to do all day online about all of us sitting up here. But as elected officials, that comes with the territory. It is ironic that they're as thin-skinned as they are at times, considering that many of them run for office and seem to like to use big words like corruption and we're all criminals. I believe Mr. Hers, to quote you, I don't own a home in the city because I used up all my money on weight loss, a new wardrobe, and a young hairdo. I'm glad you approve and you notice my weight loss. Thank you. I'm glad you like my new wardrobe and I'm glad you like my hair. But as usual, your facts are inaccurate and another lie spread by you in this city, which is disappointing. Much like the one of us having me personally escorting out a 70-plus-year-old woman at the last commission meeting, another non-fact that you like to perpetuate out to the public. But all points taken. Mr. Smith, thank you for a reminder of the town hall meeting. And I believe that addresses everything we had here. I hope. Yes, we did. Okay.
Okay, we are now on consent. Items 2 through 5 are currently on consent.
Okay. Board, any polls on those?
No.
Number 3.
You want to pull number 3?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that care to comment on item 3, 4, or 5? Anyone online? Yes, ma'am. Did you want to comment on one? Okay, sure. Come on up. Which one would you like to comment on? 3? Oh, let's wait. That's being polled. So I'm talking, I apologize. 4 or 5? You might want to sit right there to save yourself a walk. 4 or 5?
2 as well, Mayor, the board appointment.
All right, 2, 4, and 5. We've pulled 3 for discussion. Okay, close it to the public, commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from the vice mayor. We have second of Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Um,
passes unanimously. Number 3.
The reason I pull this is because
Roll call vote.
I'm sorry, roll call vote for that, Mayor.
I apologize. A roll call on that one?
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas.
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending the rules and regulations for Deerfield Beach Memorial Cemetery and Pine View Cemetery to revise the dimension requirements for headstones, markers, and memorials, and update various provisions to be consistent with the administrative operation of the cemeteries, providing for implementation and an effective date.
City manager, you want to give us an overview?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this item is twofold. First and foremost, we do have some headstones out there in situations where we have 3 family members who have 3 adjoining plots. And currently, our regulations do not provide for a headstone that would accommodate 3 names. So this is going to add that. We actually have somebody who has recently requested that, and we thought this was a modest request and we wanted to make that change. Additionally, since we were going to go ahead and make that change to the ordinance, we're just updating some administrative procedural items in here to reflect the way that we do business today in terms of who's authorized to do various things within the operations of the cemetery.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to open it to the public. Is that all right? Okay.
Good evening. Janice Fulmer Tigner, 1090 Southwest 4th Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33441. You mentioned, the city manager mentioned about plot dimensions. One question, have we thought about or looked into different type of being able to purchase different type of monument markers like the ones that stand up? Are we allowed, has that been brought to the commission before? Because there are some people that do want other type of markers than just the flat markers. Second question to the markers, when the markers are broken and they're damaged due to the landscapers and the lawn maintenance workers doing the yard, the cemetery, and things are broken, whose attention do we bring that to? How long should it take to get repaired? It should not take years for headstones to be replaced. And when it comes to the pricing of the cemeteries, I think there's no more than fair, whether it's Pineview or Deerfield Beach Memorial Cemetery, when there's an increase in the cost of grave sites or plots, that the community, the citizens need to be notified. I've not once ever seen anything, I'm 60 years old now, but I've never seen anything come to my parents' mailbox nor mine that there's a price increase going up on our cemetery plots. And I think that's very important. And I've worked with funeral homes before, sitting at a desk, and I open up an email and it's cemetery plots have gone up. And I asked the director, you know anything about this? And he's like, no, call the city. And they was like, oh, yeah, we were gonna let the funeral homes know. Didn't even notify the funeral homes that prices were going up. So I think that it's before it's done, once it's discussed with the commission. I haven't seen or heard it on the agendas, but once it's brought, something needs to go out to the community to let them know that there's an increase being brought forth. And the procedure as far as burials, I understand. And now if you're not a resident, then you can't even apply to be buried within the city. And I want to know if that's still the law, the rules for the city of Deerfield Beach. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners, Terry Scott, 180 Southwest Third Avenue. To that of the cemetery, and I do pray that we do get this monument thing in order, because we have truly been out of order with it, not knowing where we stand at with it, because Pineview have all flats and Memorial have some standing in the historical part, but not in other parts. And we do need to be more on the ground level with everybody and everything. And then to the part of the cemetery prices going up, there was a workshop on that. We did talk about that. That did come before us, came before this commission and before this community. And it was supposed to be in incremental years, that every year to 2026, we were supposed to be going up. Looking at it, we weren't supposed to take a just overall plunge. And all of our funeral homes were invited to meet with Terry when she was Park and Rec director. They was brought in to meet about that and to add their concerns here in the city of Deerfield about our cemetery prices, because we were the lowest at one given time. And of course, we still in that, and I hope that we can stay around it and that we can keep others from coming here being buried. We said we would allow no more out-of-towners to come unless they had immediate family here in the city of Deerfield, and they had great ties to the city by being born and raised here. And I think we need to keep those things in order, but we definitely need to look at Pineview and the broken headstones, of course, because we do have some, and it's not the residents' fault when they are broken by trucks going out there being on them. And I know sometimes that's the only way we can get to bury some, but we need to look at that in better ways, Mr. Manager, with the graveyard staff, because our community is complaining about it. It does become another burden, finance bearer on a community. And we just need to see about that. And we surely need to get these markers correct and give us some kind of leadway on what we can do and cannot do, and making sure that all of us are treated the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Representative, go ahead.
Glenn Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33441. Mayor, I would like to know from the city manager and the cemetery folks, have they relooked at the grave sites in Pineview? Because at one point they were discussing looking at some of the plots that were there, that we could combine the youth plots that were set aside for youth, and have some more space in Pineview. I'd like to know if that is still being considered.
Thank you. Okay. Close it to the public. Mr. Santucci, can you just address some of the comments that were made? before we get into our debate up here?
Yes, Mayor, to the extent that I can, and I don't have all the answers, I'd be happy to, but first and foremost, I will have a discussion with the Director of Parks and Recreation to learn more about the potential broken markers that may be out there and what the plan is to address that. Surely we'll make sure that we take care of that. Also, I'm really not familiar with the history as it relates to why there may be headstones in Memorial and not in Pineview and what that history is, but I'm sure I can get those answers and provide those back to the commission. And in terms of Pineview Cemetery and combining infant plots to try to accommodate more adult plots, I think we're moving forward on a case-by-case basis until we reach capacity, which was one of the reasons why we did make that change to go to Deerfield Beach residents only for those burials, as well as their immediate family members.
And who takes care of the markers when they're damaged?
If they're damaged by the city, surely that should be a city responsibility. So I just need to learn more about how that may be occurring and why, and it frankly really shouldn't. I mean, those things may happen, but we need to address that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Preston, you pulled this?
Yes, I did. The reason I pulled this is going through the backup, it actually defined the infant part of what by definition is an infant, and it did not include the first birthday. There are many organizations medically that will give you a definition of the infant that goes up to the first birthday, and in our charter, it did not address that. So that's just something that needs to be addressed, the definition of the infant. And that goes up to the first birthday. CDC defines it that way, and there's many other organizations that define it that way as well.
Okay. See any other comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that this be approved with that amendment being made as far as the definition of infant.
See any issue with that, city manager?
If I may go first, so just to be clear, I think what we're saying here is right now the infant definition does not include the birthday of that 1 year, and we're going to now include that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that from an administrative standpoint, I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear, to the extent this gets approved and I write this, it's so any person, I guess, that has not reached his or her second birthday, essentially. So you could be 1 and be an infant, essentially. Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, it goes up to first birthday.
It goes up to 1.
Yes.
Oh, not 1 in a day. Just 1. Understood. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak?
Yes.
Commissioner Preston?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Okay, item number 6 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the transfer of certain easement and other rights of the city to the Florida Department of Transportation for drainage purposes in connection with the AFDOT Southwest 10th Street project, providing for execution of the related quitclaim deed, providing for implementation and an effective date. If it's okay, Mayor, I'd like to give just a brief overview of this item. So some brief history. What we're dealing with and talking about today is the very north part of Crystal Lake. This is not the part that's closer to Sample Road. This is the part that is just south of Green Road and just east of Powerline Road. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lawsuit by the property owners, the adjacent property owners of land that also owned portions of that lake that were seeking to fill in the lake and develop the lake. As a result of that lawsuit, ultimately the city back in 2001 entered into agreement with those property owners to limit development, allowed them to fill in a portion of the lake, but essentially limited development to just that portion, and no other portion of the lake was allowed to be filled in and developed. Thereafter, And that agreement was an attempt to resolve the dispute and lawsuit. And this was about 52 acres of water body at that north part of Crystal Lake. Thereafter, the property owners did fill in the lake. They filled in about 12.5 acres of dry land that was intended for future development purposes. Since that point in time, that vacant dry land has sat there. It has development rights, but they did not actually develop it. The city was recently contacted last year by FDOT to advise us that they were considering potential eminent domain action against those property owners, although they were in negotiations. So rather than do a taking through the court, potentially they can negotiate some sum to purchase that land for their purposes for drainage. And what they sought to do with the land is to actually remove the land and turn it back into a water body. They indicated that they may include the city in that lawsuit as a necessary party by virtue of our agreement and certain rights that we had under that agreement. So they were able to work out a resolution with those property owners to avoid the eminent domain action. And so they're going to pay a sum to those property owners essentially to get that water body. And the city was able to work out, I think what staff would say was a superior design for what FDOT wanted to do. They originally came to the city and wanted to propose that there be a pond and then a berm that breaks up the lake between the pond and the remainder of the lake. The city was able to work with FDOT so that they're essentially going to remove the land and they're going to create what will look like one cohesive lake and expand the water body. So what this item does before you is it effectively quitclaim deeds any interest the city has with respect to the agreement that was entered into over to FDOT, allows them to remove that water body and have it for drainage purposes, and will effectively expand that portion of Crystal Lake where there is now 12.5 dry acres of land that could have been developed. That is going to be removed by FDOT, and they're going to expand the lake. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Parnas.
I'm going to recommend that we approve this for the following reasons. As you know, we've had more than one attempt to fill in more of the lake. We even went to court and we won to preserve the lake. This actually expands the lake. And from a lake that was once 700 plus acres, it is now only 150. This is certainly a plus to the residents and the city itself to expand that lake. So I'm asking my fellow commissioners to approve this because it's been a long fight to maintain that lake for the citizens of Crystal Lake and the city of Deerfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Parnas, I can fully support you on that. I wanted to add to the discussion. It's in the title of the resolution for tonight. It wasn't expressly stated yet, but the expansion of the lake is for the drainage from the Southwest 10th Street project. As you recall, as we've gone through this through many years, there was many discussions with FDOT. Where would the drainage from that project go? There was discussions that maybe it would go into Century Village. There were discussions that could make its way up to the Hillsborough Canal. And now ultimately it's settled that it would be the portion by expanding the lake for Crystal Lake. So that's where this all comes from. Finally, a landing place that FDOT has determined where the drainage from the Southwest 10th Street expansion project is going to go. So if the district commissioner has no problem with it, and that's certainly a good place for it to go to expand that and to prevent future development there, I'm all for it too.
Thank you. I remember when this was extremely controversial when when it was filled in. Yep. And people like Tom Connick and former Commissioner Militello fought very hard and were outraged by it, as they should have been. It's nice to see it going to be returned back to its natural state, as natural as it could be in a man-made lake, I suppose. So we have a motion from you.
You need it open to the public?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. We open it up to the public. Anyone online? Okay, and we'll close it to the public.
Now I'll make the motion to approve.
I will second it.
Motion from Vice Mayor Parnas, second by Commissioner Drosky. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perez,
Absolutely, yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the Vision Zero Master Plan and Vision Zero Action Plan to eliminate traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries within the city and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Services, City of Deerfield Beach. All right. You just move the. Thanks. So in March of last year, I came before this commission to introduce the concept of Vision Zero, which you can see in the slide, and the resolution was adopted then to create the Vision Zero Master and Action Plans. To be clear, Vision Zero is an unattainable goal. We will never be able to control the elements, vehicle failure, certain driver actions, but it's called Vision Zero because no death is acceptable. That we are striving for a completely safe city. We are essentially cannot settle with the current roadway failures. And I know that I've been here long enough to hear this commission share their concerns with safety on the roadways every time that there is a death on Hillsborough Boulevard or 10th Street or anything of that nature. And I know you don't agree with the status quo. And you want action. And Vision Zero is that action to provide safer roads for the city of Deerfield Beach. So what have we done in the past 10 months? Staff has been active in obtaining and evaluating the data that was collected from BSO of all the crashes that have occurred, as well as being part of the Federal Highway Administration's Community Pairing Program, which allowed us to work nationwide with many people who already have obtained Vision Zero master plans. We've worked with the county MPO and their Safe Streets Initiative. The city has already been awarded a complete streets demonstration project for the 3rd Avenue MLK roadways. And this past week, I was asked to be part of the SSA4A Safety Action Plan Technical Working Group for the MPO. So I've been that annoying that they just decided, why don't you come over here and tell us what to do? We've been discussing this goal of how do we obtain it. And I'm going to get to it in a future slide, but essentially what we're requesting tonight is that we set the goal for 2050. And I'll speak about that in a few moments. What I wanted to share with you first is the data that has occurred from the 5-year data set, which is from 2018 to 2022. So as you can see, and just so you understand what serious injury versus fatality is, you know, this isn't every single crash. This isn't every single accident that has occurred in Deerfield Beach. These are only the accidents in which you were seriously injured or there was a fatality, right? You do see a small dip in 2020. That is because of COVID. Unfortunately, that is just a natural reality. Less people were on the roadways. Back in 2021, you know, it kind of does creep back up. It creeps back up in 2022. We actually just received the data for 2023, which we haven't fully analyzed, but we do know that unfortunately there were an additional 29 serious injuries and 12 fatalities in 2023. So, you know, it's kind of consistent. And that's the sad part, is that it's consistent, right? Because that just shows that eventually this is what's going to occur every year in the city. So moving forward then, again, what is 2050? It is estimated that all the state roadways, the county roadways, when they go through their annual, they're basically decades-long resurfacing restoration projects, that it could be up to 25 years before every single county and state road in the city has an update, which, you know, restriping, new asphalt, maybe new crosswalks, and all the other types of things that we'll be looking for in Vision Zero. And that there are also 150 miles of local roads. So the reality is, we can't, you know, do this tomorrow. We don't have the control over many of these roads. You know, we have to work with county and state agencies, and they only do those things every 10 to 15 years. And that is the real reason for why the goal is for 2050, because we can't honestly say we can obtain these improvements without the county and states work. And I want to show you real quick, this is just a presentation here that shows that there are 150 miles of city roads, which is about 43% of the city. Private roads, which we're not really going to count right now, is about 30%. State roads being about 18%, and county roads being about 9%, for a total of 351 total miles of roadway. And what that means is that 67% of all crashes occur on the 18% of roadways. And I don't do math very well, but what that means is if all roads were equal, 49% of more crashes occur on state roads. So almost half occur on state roads. And why is that? Some of it is due to speed. Speed kills. That is a reality. So it is not just because the county and state roads are somehow designed worse than a local road. It's the fact that they're faster roads. 35, 45, 55 miles an hour is normal. And obviously, if you're going 55 miles an hour and that's the posted speed limit and someone's speeding above that speed limit, that is a reality. So speed is a predominant factor in whether or not the accident causes a serious injury or a crash. In the data that we collected, about 19% of all crashes were related to speeding, about 25% related to distraction, and about 42% related to reckless driving. So combined, that's about 86% of all crashes occurred because the human inside that vehicle decided to do something they shouldn't be doing. Part of Vision Zero is having commitments. And we wanted to express the commitments that Vision Zero has in order to make these goals a reality. And the first one is shared responsibility, right? So recognizing that the city cannot do this on its own, that there are, Broward County and state agencies that we must work with to make these improvements. Public health. Unfortunately, the state of Florida is the second most dangerous state for pedestrians. And the Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach metropolitan area is actually the 14th most dangerous metropolitan area in the entire country. The next one is emergency services. Vision Zero does not impact emergency services. It benefits emergency services by also trying to reduce the amount of serious injuries that could occur on roadways. Equity, one of the most important aspects of Vision Zero. Community dialogue, understanding how and why these crashes might occur in local ways. And public involvement, collective efforts. We have to ensure that the public has a voice with this process. So what are the city actions? So you have the master plan and the action plan in front of you. The master plan is the static documents. Master plan just explains what Vision Zero is, talks about this data for the last 5 years, explains those issues. The action plan, which I'm going to elaborate on in a few moments, that's the living document. That's the document that is how do we reach that goal of 2050 is by following the action plan. A report card is an annual item that we'll bring before the commission every January, in which we'll explain the things that we have done and the things we plan to do and any proposed changes within that plan that might occur in the next few years. And then the next thing I want to talk to you about is the Vision Zero dashboard, which I'm very excited about. I want to just take a quick second to say, like I'm not the one who has done this. Like the staff, city staff has done all this work. Our GIS team is fantastic. This next thing I'm so excited to show you. These are just static images, but I want to show you what the Vision Zero dashboard is going to be. This is going to be on the city website. And this is, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? This is the map that really explains what's going on in the city. And so this is what's called a heat map. And the brighter the area is, the larger the cluster of crashes. And you can kind of see it is actually pretty uniform across the city. But all the data here, you can see like it's a total of 194 crashes. Here's the crashes by mode. Here's the time of day. Here's the incidents over years. And you'll be able to zoom in to any area. So, where do I live? Where do I go to work? Where are those school zones? And you can actually zoom into an area, and I'm just going to choose, because again, this is a static image. I'm going to choose the intersection of Hillsborough and 3rd Avenue, which is one of the areas that we've just received grant for improvements for. And you can actually see all the different incidences, and you'll be able to click on any of those, and specific data will come up about that crash. Now, not obviously a person's information or personal data, but just, what were the reasons for why that crash occurred? And that's the information that we need. That's how we're going to resolve some of these larger issues, by understanding if there is causality and common reasons for why the same crash or the same intersection seems to be as dangerous as like this particular intersection is. So I'm very excited about that website that'll be actually out very soon. So again, back to the action plan. What is that action plan, right? So there are strategies. There are 6 different strategies that we have in the action plan. So data collection, the creation of culture of safety, the implementation of culture and safety, the education and the outreach, and as well as, again, the public commitment. And as a brief example of what that means over time, this is just, again, this broad sampling to understand the timeline, how it works. Next year will require additional planning and evaluation. Years 1 through 3 require dollars to develop and design the plan. And 3 years out is when we're actually expected to see actual work proposed, for capital projects, maybe grant requests, various fund allocations for improvements. And this doesn't happen overnight. I think that's the most important thing to explain, is that this doesn't happen overnight. This is a multi-year, in fact, a multi-decade program that will take time and resources to achieve. But if we follow this plan and in this timeline, we will see the results that we want to see to make the city of Deerfield Beach a safer place. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I also don't recommend using that dashboard website while driving. But this is excellent material, and being with the MPO, I know what Vision Zero is and what we're striving to do. So this is some great work and some really a lot of low hanging fruit on here that's low cost and simple things that we can do. So that's great to see this. Commissioner Drosky and then Vice Mayor Parnas.
Yes, I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you, Mr. Power, for spearheading this event. I know you've basically taken this under your wing, but also to all of your staff who's not here tonight, thanking them for all the hard work behind the scenes. I know it was a short slide presentation, but I know it's taken, a long time, probably a year's worth of effort that went into that behind the scenes, everything that you've done. It's an aspirational goal, unattainable, as you said, but definitely aspirational. And I'm on board, and I appreciate all your hard work in getting us here.
Thank you. Yeah, I did want to mention the Transportation Working Group, which is the group of internal departments that basically operates this and goes through grant opportunities for the city. That's who really did all of this work. So I do appreciate it, but they did all the work.
Thank you.
Eric, if you're going south on Powerline and you come to Century Village on Powerline, there's a left turn arrow into the village. Unfortunately, after the 30 seconds, the light turns green. And we have many seniors, some in their 90s, trying to negotiate a left turn into the village with oncoming traffic. What can be done that when the green arrow, that turn arrow goes off, it turns red, so they wait for the next one? It is extremely dangerous because they're trying to beat the oncoming traffic and make it into the village.
Yeah.
And it's been going on like that for a long time. And the village tells me, they said they don't want to do it. There's not enough accidents there. It's a simple matter of changing a green light arrow to a red one instead of just letting it go.
So I'm not familiar with that particular issue, but we talked about one of the commitments, is working with the other agencies. And that's what's so important when we talk about what's called shared responsibility, right? Because we have an issue, we have a concern, and we don't actually have full control over how that works. So creating the correct dialogue with the county and state agencies is very important. This last year, because the federal government has pushed dollars, the state has accepted those dollars, the counties accepted those dollars. There's a lot of change that's recently occurred. Now, when it comes to, federal, state agencies, that change seems small, right? But there is a lot of change and there's a lot of different mindsets that we definitely didn't have a few years ago. Just even having the opportunity to have those meetings wasn't really possible a few years ago. So these things are changing. One of our action plan items actually is to meet quarterly with Broward County Traffic to discuss all of these types of issues, something we just don't currently do. One of the low-hanging fruit items that the commissioner was just talking about, just having that open dialogue on a regular basis. So that's one of those items that I'll bring forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Power. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? Then we close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas.
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
We are now at comments by administration and legal. No further comments from legal. Item number 8 is a discussion regarding submission of a letter to the Broward County School Board requesting assistance with the improvement of the improvement of the Deerfield Beach school grades.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. At the last commission meeting, Commissioner Drosky brought an item forward to discuss the school grades. And during that dialogue, Commissioner Preston made a recommendation that we send a letter to the school board, and there seemed to be some consensus amongst the commission to do so. With that, I went ahead and drafted a letter for transmittal to the superintendent that you have in your backup. And that's the item before you. Since that time, since drafting that letter, I did have a conversation with Dr. Licata, and he is expecting this, and he's taking that very well. In fact, he said he looks forward to it and looks forward to working with me and the community to address some of these issues. And I think, as Mr. Joel Smith said, we have this meeting tomorrow night where it's a community town hall meeting talking about how to support the whole child, which is one of the issues I believe that we face is in correcting this is the support to the children, food insecurities, their home life, these types of basic needs that they have to make sure that they can actually excel in school. So I look forward to that tomorrow night. And in addition, on top of that, there are some meetings coming up that the school board has put together to address this issue as well. Those meetings are taking place throughout the county. They're going to be at 3 different locations. There's one on February 8th at Fort Lauderdale High School. There's one on February 15th at JP Taravella High School. And there's one on February 22nd at Flanagan High School. So the school board does seem to be at least taking note of this and starting those discussions. Happy to address any questions that you have regarding the letter itself. That's all I have for this item, but I do have some additional comments.
Thank you. Is everyone okay with the letter that's being submitted?
Yes.
Okay.
You need a motion?
I believe we need to open it to the public, or this is discussion on it. Is that correct?
Just a discussion item. It's up to you.
Okay. Well, okay, we discussed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just 2 other items for the commission. Just a reminder that this Thursday we have a workshop regarding code compliance, and we're getting to a point where we need to start discussing how to move forward with code compliance because the existing contract is going to expire, and as staff, we want to make sure that we have those discussions with the commission and get some direction from you. So I look forward to doing that on Thursday. And then I also want to remind you that on Friday we're doing something new, which is a lunch brief workshop. That is, my attempt to communicate with the commission, do better with that. And so we'll be doing this on a monthly basis. As you know, it's the last Friday of every month at noon to 1 p.m. I want to be very respectful of your time and keep that to 1 hour as a workshop where city staff and myself will be providing you, information and keeping up to date, asking for your input. There is no portion of public comment in that meeting, and that's for 2 reasons. One, it's not required as it is only a workshop. Two, actually, there's three reasons. Two, this is designed to enhance my communication with the commission as a whole. And three, most importantly, we only have an hour. So I need to pack as much information into an hour as possible. Now, I will say that it is obviously, because it is open to the sunshine, available for the public to attend. However, of course, following the meeting, if there's any public comment input, I welcome that. And I'm happy to have that dialogue with anybody in the public who would like to provide input on any of the items that we discuss. Coming up on this Friday's workshop, we're going to be providing some updates. We are hitting our centennial in 2025. So we want to talk a little bit about that. We also want to talk about our naming policy, I believe. That's what it is. Make sure that that's on there. Take a note here. Our commemorative naming policy, yes. And then an update of our AMI meter program, tell you where we're at with that. And then also just provide you an update on various business and economic activities that are going on in the city. So I look forward to that as well. That's all the comments I have. Thank you.
We are now at City Commission business. Item number 9, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Article 2, Boards, Committees, Commissions of Chapter 2, Administration of the City Code of Ordinances to create Section 2-26, Criminal History Background Checks for certain advisory boards and committees, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is first reading. This was deferred from the January 9th, 2024 meeting. I just want to point out there was a question to my office about the exemption for elected officials. I had indicated on the record that when we looked at other restrictions or other level 2 background check requirements in other places, they did have that exemption. I thought it was probably to avoid any issues with the qualifications to become a mayor or city manager. But I did look into the matter. I was comfortable we can remove it, and this restriction could be applied to city commissioners as well. And Commissioner Drosky had no problem with me removing it. So it is now removed. What is before you is the same ordinance that you saw last time, minus the exemption for the elected officials.
Okay. So that's no longer in the number 9.
That was the only change from the prior discussion from last meeting.
Is excluded at this point.
The exemption for local elected officials for serving on boards and requiring the level 2 background check has been removed. So theoretically, if you were to be appointed on a board, which most boards do not get commissioners appointed to, and one of those boards had one of these duties and it triggered a level 2 background check, you would need to have a level 2 background check.
If you wanted to be on that committee.
If you wanted to be on that board and you were eligible to be on that board, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know who was first. All right, Commissioner Drosky.
I brought this up, and this to me is very simply a public safety ordinance. I mean, no more, no less. I don't think this needs to be taken any further than that, although some are going to try and do that. There's no bad intent here. There's nothing nefarious going on. It's simply the role of government, when applicable, to protect its citizens and its residents. And this is what this ordinance tends to do. It is crafted to those boards that are appointed by the city commission that are in the best position, rather, to deal with minors, elderly, and persons of special needs in our city. And those 3 boards, without any indication of race, ethnicity, male, female, any of that, in alphabetical order, are African American Heritage Board, Cultural Committee, and the Educational Advisory Board. Those 3 boards are an extension of this commission. Those persons that we appoint to those boards are representation of not just us that appoint them, but of the city at large. They are wearing shirts, carrying insignia that have the city's logo or other insignia on there that represent that they are an extension of this city. And so when those members interact with the public has a right to know that those individuals are safe to interact with. And that's all that this ordinance does, is that those people serving on those particular boards that interact with the public should take the level 2 background check. It's not at their expense. It's at the city's expense. It's a public safety measure. And I don't mean this crass, but I don't care that other cities don't have this requirement. I think it's good that we are the first or one of the first to be out of the chute to implement this. And maybe they will look at us and say, yeah, this is maybe something we should do. But I think when it comes to public safety, you've got to err on the side of public safety and not against it. If, God forbid, one committee member on any of these boards were to interact with the public, something bad were to happen, me as an attorney, who are you going to go after in a lawsuit? You're going to go after the deepest pockets, and that's going to be the city of Deerfield Beach, because we did not do our job to vet those persons on these boards interacting with the public. If you volunteer for a school, you have to have a background check. If you volunteer for some service organizations in this community, you have to have a background check. I don't see how this is any different if you're interacting with the public with persons that are potentially susceptible, minors and the elderly, to have a background check. I just see it as a public safety ordinance, nothing more. I think it's protecting the public, and I don't see where this should be that controversial, but somehow it's turned into that.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston.
Thank you. There hasn't been a suggestion of anyone that anything is suspicious nor nefarious in nature. However, I still contend that this is a solution searching for a problem. It's just not needed. For instance, if you were to say the boards that you mentioned, any of those boards, what part of their job description in representation of the city or extension of the city could put the city in jeopardy? What do they do? What part of their job? I would actually probably say that most of us, sitting on the commission, if you would say, what in detail does the cultural committee do? I don't think we could do it. If they were to say what in detail that would put the public in jeopardy with the Educational Advisory Board, what part of their job description or their representation of the city could be interpreted that way? Nothing. We don't know, because the fact of the matter is they don't have direct contact. And if we don't know all of the details associated with the description of a person on that board, then in essence, what we're doing is voting on something that we don't even really know what their job is. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the issue that I have. The fact of the matter is the Education Advisory Board does not have direct contact with the elderly and kids. Here's what happens with the Education Advisory Board, and it sounds good, Educational Advisory. They go in once a month, they sit down, and they talk to the administrator or talk to the principals, and that's basically it, and they go home. They're not going into the classroom with the kids, so what are we protecting? They're not doing anything. And so if it was such that they were going into the classrooms, direct contact with the kids, I mean, that's the Education Advisory Board that I would somehow have some sympathy toward. But the fact of the matter is, nobody can tell me what part of their job description puts the city at jeopardy. What is it? Tell me. I don't think you knew it.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak?
There's one thing to have a solution looking for a problem, and there's another thing to be proactive in making ordinances. There are a lot of times where things have been grandfathered in and this city wasn't proactive, and therefore we have Airbnbs and Boca doesn't. because we weren't proactive. They were. So to say that, well, this is a solution looking for a problem, I don't buy that argument. The argument that the Cultural Committee or the Education Advisory Committee or the African American Committee do not have contact with the public, I would have to disagree with as well. I think that's a nature of that committee, is to reach out to the public, to reach out to the educational institutions for the betterment. And in those instances, having this extra layer of protection, I don't think is a bad idea at all.
Okay. Commissioner Preston, then I'm gonna open up to the public. And then Vice Mayor Parnas, apparently.
I never said that, they didn't have direct contact with the public. That's not what I said. What I said is direct contact with children and elderly. I didn't say that. Everybody, that's obvious they're gonna have contact with the public. That's not what I said. You misquoted me. Okay, the fact of it is, I said about children and elderly. They don't have that direct, intimate contact that would suggest then that we need to have something in place. It would make sense if if that was the case. But still, again, nobody can tell me specifically and detail it to this specific committee. Here's where I'm really concerned at this part. Other than in a general sense, you tell me that they're out in the public end. So we're being proactive about things in generality and things that are basically indirect. You can't tell me anything specific. I'd like to hear it. If it is anything specific, for instance, if the educational committee was going into the school, teaching in the schools, or getting into the classroom with the school, then we have an issue and we can debate that. But you can't tell me anything specific now. It's just a generality and we're being proactive. That's it. Nothing's in specificity. And I'm challenged with that.
Okay, Vice Mayor Parnas?
Yeah, I'm looking at this whole list of crimes, misdemeanors, other things, lewd and lascivious behavior. If somebody 30 years ago got out of their car and relieved themselves and got caught by a policeman for indecent exposure, 25 years later, we're kicking them off a committee. There is no timeline here. There is no saying it was a misdemeanor 30 years ago. It's just black and white. If you ever did it in your life, too bad, you're out. And I can't support that. Because what we're doing is punishing somebody who's already been punished. And for the next 25 years, there's nothing against them. But the record is still there from 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And it may have been even a minor misdemeanor. Too bad. I'm sorry. To me, it's going overboard. I can't support that. This is not specific enough in its entirety to say misdemeanors that are over 20 years old are excluded. There's nothing like that. It's so you were a kid and you got drunk one night in a bar and got into a fight. Too bad, you can no longer be on a committee. You were involved in assault and battery 30 years ago. Where do we draw the line? There is no line here. It's black and white. If you spit on the sidewalk, you're out. To me, that's going overboard. Way overboard. That's punishing somebody twice for something that happened 20 years ago. And they may have lived exemplary lives for 30 years. But the record said 30 years ago, he spit on the sidewalk, so he can't be on a committee. Failed his background check. And I think this has to be a little more specific before I can approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky, then Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you, Mayor. I gave my copy of the statute away, so I'll let the city attorney, to the extent he can, talk about the level 2 background and what that covers and doesn't and time limitations. But what I wanted to speak to was these committees and Commissioner Preston's point about them dealing with the public. Commissioner Preston, the Education Advisory Board is most definitely in our schools. I have attended with the Education Advisory Board the scholarship night at the high school where they were in attendance, handing out checks to the recipients of the scholarship, sitting in the public, waiting their turn to be called up on stage, interacting with the public and students there in that setting. I have been there and I have seen that. The African American Heritage Board and the Cultural Committee hold events throughout our city and our city parks where there's children in attendance and the elderly all the time. Juneteenth at Oviedo McKeithen has a big proportion of children from that community that come out that our board is interacting with. If we were to have, and I'm just picking something random off the top of my head, if we were to ever appoint somebody to one of these boards that, for example, said had was a sexual predator, and now they're in our school with the EAB handing out scholarships, they're in our parks with our Juneteenth event or with our cultural committee events, that's something that we as the commission and the public has a right to know, and they should not be sitting on those boards because they interact with the public. So yes, I'm giving you specific examples where these boards interact with the public, and I have been to all of these events and seen it happen. So that's why I'm bringing this forward.
Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you. As an employer, we can only go back 7 years. Mr. City Attorney, is there a time frame that we go back on these? These actually don't look like misdemeanors to me. These look like felonies. But the first question I have is, how far back do we look when we do a criminal background check?
So the ordinance references, there's a state statute 435.04, which is the state sort of standard statute for level 2 screenings. So that like a state employee that's required to get a level 2 screening or any other employee potentially for participate in Medicare programs, things of that nature, they all follow this same level 2 screening standard. And there are a number of various crimes, most of which are felonies, that are listed in here. I do not see a limitation in terms of when the crime was committed in here. What it says is the security background investigations under this section must ensure that no person subject to the provisions of the section have been arrested for and are awaiting final disposition of, have been found guilty of, regardless of adjudication, or entered a plea of no local contender or guilty to, or have been adjudicated delinquent and the record has not been sealed or expunged for any offense prohibited under any of the following provisions of state law or similar laws of another jurisdiction. And then it goes on to list a number of offenses: sexual misconduct, adult abuse, murder, manslaughter, vehicular homicide, killing of an unborn child, assault, battery, culpable negligence, if the offense was a felony. So there are a couple of them that will condition it on being a felony, but there's a list in there. It should be in your backup too as well. In this agenda item, we did include the statute as a backup in the agenda item.
I see the list and I don't see any misdemeanors on here. They've all listed as felonies. So I don't see spitting on a street. I don't see a 16-year-old going into a bar, getting drunk and getting into a fight. I see prostitution, arson, burglary. I see sexual offenses to children, manslaughter, aggravated manslaughter of an elderly person. These are serious crimes, which if this person was convicted, they spent time in jail. This isn't someone who spit on the side of the street and got a citation. More than likely, if they were convicted of these crimes, even if it was a pretrial intervention program, I don't think that would even be offered to somebody who is relating to child abuse, relating to contributing to the delinquency, dependency of a minor, sexual performance, relating to sexual performance by a child, relating to resisting arrest with violence. All of these items are individuals are being incarcerated. exhibiting firearms or weapons within 1,000 feet of a school. So we're not talking about somebody who was jaywalking. We're talking about a lot more serious crimes there. And that's why I'm in support of this.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Commissioner Preston, then open it to the public.
Oh, Commissioner Drosky, I did not say it was a thing about interaction with the public. I didn't say that. That's not what it's about.
Oh,
I
thought you
said
said-
detailing something of the job description that you would say, this is where I have an issue. Of course, they interact with the public. That's a known entity. But that's not what I'm referring to. What I'm saying is there's nothing that we're talking about wherein you say, if you want to be on the cultural committee, and if you're going to be in the presence of kids or the elderly, then then we better wipe away our board, because at some point, a lot of these boards are in contact with kids or the elderly. At any given event, you could be in contact with them. So being in contact with kids or the elderly is not exclusive to the boards that are mentioned. That's something that can happen in a lot of the boards. At any given, if let's just say, if someone from the Marine Advisory Board decides to go to Juneteenth, and they're just out there, they are part of a board of the city of Deerfield Beach. They're out there mingling with kids. They're mingling with adults. It could be elderly. But they don't need a background check. And if they have on their Marine Advisory shirt or whatever the case may be, the fact of the matter is that, they are being excluded. Here's what the problem is with the background check. People change their lives. They make mistakes. And then the mistake, as Commissioner Parnas says, can follow them. They can get to a time where they want to contribute to their city. They want to give back, but then it's a background check that's going to hold them back. People change their lives. And a lot of the things that they did when they were younger, just was mistakes. But it doesn't allow it to be a mistake, because if you decide that you want to coach, maybe tell a kid to not do something that you did, you can't do that, because we're going to always remember that you had a problem here. People change. I think that this is a situation where this will not be an inspiration for people to say, hey, as a result of that ordinance that you guys passed the other night for background checks, I really want to now get on a board. At some point, we're going to feel this. We're going to feel this, because in all reality, it's just not needed. It's just not. It's just not. And I understand that the people, that the boards that are being mentioned here come in contact with the public. I understand that, but that's not what I said. I said, tell me what specifically does the cultural committee do, other than generality, dealing with the public and kids and that stuff? What specifically? And let me just tell you, the thing with the Education Advisory Board, they do not go in the classroom and talk. They're talking to the administrator, the principal. That's what they do. And if they get something, they bring it back to us as a representative. So that's my position.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up to the public.
Islameh Abdul Aziz, 425 Northwest First Terrace, apartment 205, Deerfield Beach, Florida. What does a background check mean? A background check is the process of investigating an individual's history. Does this mean that if you were guilty of a crime 50 years ago, that it stops you from becoming a productive aid to society? I remember the first time I went to jail at the age of 15 because I ate some ice cream and a kosher pickle, which caused me which I caught food poisoning, and my body broke out in sores, and the teacher sent me home. So my mother took me to the doctor, and the doctor gave me a permission slip to be out of school for 2 weeks. During that time, in the 50s and 60s, that was a no-no, because a truant officer would come to your house, and when they came, they took me to jail. And I cried and I cried, and they put me in a cell with another inmate. The woman was a grown woman. When I asked her what she was there for, she said murder. I cried like a baby. They are still doing that to our youth today. Since then, I have been honored by commissioners, Mayor Joy Cooper of Hollandale, Mayor Pat Larkins of Pompano, Mayor Sam Thomas of West Palm Beach, Mayor Gene Robb of Deerfield Beach, an award from the House of Representatives from the Honorable late Alcee Hastings. So now that you find that I have a criminal record, you're going to say I can't continue to work with children to save them from dying from fentanyl? Okay, because that's what West Palm Beach did to me when they did a background check, and I was working with 43 youth trying to stop them from drugs. They stopped me. Okay. Are you going to tell me that I'm not allowed to function because of a background check? It's something I did 50 years ago. I'm 81 now. Okay. My son, who was addicted to crack cocaine and served 8 years, and now has a program called the Dr. Crab Project. You can see it on YouTube, Tuesday night at 7 a.m. Aiding convicts. So please, I'm trying to hurry because I know the bell's gonna ring on me. And with ex-cons matter and ex-cons living in the world today, he was joined by mayors, lawyers, other groups such as Second Chances, ACEs, and he goes to Everglades Correctional Institution twice a month to give emotional speakers 1 minute. Emotional lectures to the prisoners. He was honored by Mayor Ken Thurston and Vice Mayor Melissa P. Dunn at Lauderhill at Smitty's Restaurant, August 25th, 2023. We are doing great work in the communities to help our children and make it a safer place for us to live. Should we be stopped because of background check, I rest my case.
Anyone else?
Hi, Commissioners. Hi, Mayor. Maria Larico, 1551 Southeast 12th Street. Just briefly, there's the conversation going amongst the commissioners. And what I'm hearing is there's a discrepancy on a standard, right? Like, how do you set that standard? So you find out that somebody has something on their record. Then there's a time issue. Then what is the level of that issue? Is it, a venial crime? Where it gets so gray, and you're not in any position, none of you, to make that law. You're commissioners, and that's law. So you're kind of going over your capacity. But there's a solution. It's a simple solution. Anyone that signs up to give their time and their civic duty, what you want to do for them is have them sign an affidavit. Now, there's nothing in my past. And then you can go ahead and make all your queries, right? And then you want to pass out and have some type of training, which would be a handbook. And when I worked for Catholic Charities, they had a sex crisis with the priests. And they had to have all of us workers pass this training. And it was great. No one's gonna, and that type of standard, everyone should have, but it's not violating anyone's person and being diminishing to what they're trying to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra Jackson, 386 Southwest 35th Avenue. I'm here because I feel like I'm not against background check in a way, because I don't have a problem with it, because I am on one of the boards. But it's like two sides. I just heard the attorney said, although you guys are putting stuff in there because the commissioners in the mirror don't serve on any board, so you guys are exempt from it. You guys are being paid by taxpayers. So if you're gonna do it for us, regardless, you don't have to be on the board. You're representing us, okay? And my understanding of level 2, if you have your record seal, a sponge, my understanding, it doesn't show up, right? So that's the case, let's go farther for you guys. Okay, we're doing the level 2. I think the commission in the mirror maybe need to do a level 4. Okay? And another thing I want to remind you guys are the one appointed the people to the boards. If you recommend that person to the board, you should know that person. So why would you recommend that person? Now you're talking about a background check. My question is, why are you just choosing certain board? We are an advisory board. We may have contact with people. You're saying elderly and children. It's not only elderly and children, it's people itself. But we're not with these people privately. I don't have a problem not wearing your shirt, okay? We're not going to take these kids in the bathroom or taking these elderly, doing something with them privately. I heard Todd, you made the comment, Commissioner, about the education board was handing out awards. They're in an open setting with other people. They're not going private, giving these kids those certificates or awards privately. We are in an open setting when we have Juneteenth, you have the banquet or anything. We're in an open setting. We're not taking someone privately. But it's no problem when we were on that board, when we can go out there and at one time we was asking for money for donation for the city and stuff like that, where we may be on phone calls or people we know. That's no problem. Just like the ministers in church and people in the church, and my question is, you have people to volunteer. You have the kids from the school that want hours. They may want to come to the city and volunteer. Are you going to ask those kids to do background check on each one of those kids that's coming to the city that's looking for volunteer hours? You have people that's in the community that want to come out and help in the city, and they volunteer. So you're going to do background checks on them also? So if you're going to do it for one, let's do it across everybody on the whole board, because just like the planning and zoning, but you don't know who did embezzlement. I think Katie made that comment at the last meeting. And you can do it in 1 minute. We can have a background check today. Okay, we can have a background check today. Somebody can go out tomorrow or that same day they had their background after they have it and do something. You guys don't know about it. You have connection with the BSO here. If you got my name, I'm quite sure y'all done ran my name through the BSO to see what I done did. Okay, so let's be fair. If you're gonna do it, let's start from the top and go on, but you guys need to have a higher level if that's the case. You're gonna do it for anybody that's serving on board, because we are only giving advice. That's all we're doing. Thank you.
Hi, Patricia Link, 252 Ventnor R, Deerfield Beach. And I just want to say, I think it's admirable of the Commissioner Drosky to care. Better to be prepared, better to be over careful than say, oh, let's trust. I don't know about trusting. And yes, there are certain people that get over it and they're fine, wonderful people, and I thank God and I'm happy. But as a mother and a grandmother who send my children to school or to after-school activities, I want to know they're safe. And once they go on that school property, you are responsible. So if you want to take that chance, that's fine, but it's not fine with me as a mom. And so that's up to you. But no, I say due diligence. And that's what this man is speaking about. And that is good. There's different types of misdemeanors. Class A, You know, you can look at a record and you don't have to judge and look at something and say, well, he spit on the sidewalk 30 years ago. He's no good. I mean, can you look at a record and say, all right, this is ridiculous, And you know what's bad and you know what's good, but you got to cut a line. You just can't say, well, let's trust everybody. So if it happens to your kids, well, we don't want to judge people. So isn't it better to save one child than to do nothing? Even if it saves one child from an emotional, traumatic experience, doesn't that make it worth it? All right, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just feel in my heart that you guys are taking arrows and you shouldn't be, because what you're doing is in your heart to do good for our children. And there are a lot of good people out there too. There really are that can volunteer. I know there's good people out there. I know it in my heart. All right, so it's never wrong to be too careful. Better put your seatbelt on, right? Than to drive without your seatbelt. Well, I drove without my seatbelt for years. Did it matter? But now we have the tools to be careful. And now we have the power to say, no, we're a little bit more sophisticated now. We're a little bit smarter now. So please, I agree with Commissioner Huckett and Commissioner Drosky. I agree. And I thank you for standing up and taking the arrows. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Link.
Thank you, guys. You do a great job. Thank you.
Terry Scott, 180 Southwest 3rd Avenue. I've had a chance to sit on the cultural committee for years. I know what they do in the general public. And one thing that we do, like everybody else, like every one of you commissioners, we speak to them. We be among them. But it is nothing that will be of concerning of a background check. Now, if background screening checks, whatever you want to call it, is coming into play, then bring it into play with everybody. Everybody. You can't single out some and say, well, they don't involve or get entangled with the general public, because we all do. Commissioners go in schools and sit among our students. Commissioners go in classrooms and sit among our students. Commissioners go to our senior residents and be among our elderly. It's a part of the job as being a political figure. It's just a part of the job. Now, we want to start putting rules into play. I agree with it. I sit on several boards that require us to have background checks. It's one of those things. In order to be a trustee, you got to have a background check. I sit in organizations. Before you can join, you have to have a background check. Just one of those things. So if that's what we are coming into, I'm all for it. But let's not single out some and not all. At this present time, Kiwanis International is saying, in order for you to be a youth advisor or go in our schools, you must have a background check by Kiwanis International. That is something they just started this year. So the first thing they did say, we're going to have a training. So I would say of Deerfield, if we're going to do that, we need to have a training, put a workshop together for all of the advisory boards, and I will even say the ad hoc committees or boards also.
Take another minute.
Thank you, Mayor. Because my thing is, if you do it for one, and our city is so gracious in giving out funds to many, I would say, and they deal with the general public and they deal with our elderly, and I'm gonna call one out because that's just me. The Historical Society. They are not an advisory board, but they surely use up Deerfield Beach taxpayers' dollars. And they deal with our elderly and they deal with our youth. How do we then do that? So we need to look at, if we're going to do something, let's do it wholeheartedly. Let's do everybody. And then we won't have no problems. Because if you do it for one, you do it for all. And then you can look at everybody and say, this is around the board. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lucia Del Genio, 707 North Shore Drive. I am with Commissioner Preston. I think we don't need any more overreach, bigger government interference. These people committed whatever committed, they pay their price. That's why they're out. We don't need to police them. We can, and I like the idea of Maria Lorico that having affidavits or his idea of training. I think that's enough. This is not police state government style, so I appreciate. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Good evening, Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, 33442. I want to start off with a joke or a story. An ant goes into a bar and he meets this elephant and there's sparks. And they decide to spend a romantic night together. The next morning, the ant wakes up and he looks over at the elephant who had passed on from all the excitement. And the ant says, you know, one night of passion and I have to spend the rest of my life digging a grave. Basically, it shows that one mistake or a thread of mistake can derail a person's life. I understand that and I can relate to that. But I think that it's very important that when a person is going into public service, I think it is important in today's day to be transparent. So I am in favor of the background check. We just had the debacle with George Santos. His whole history was a lie. And I think it was important for his constituents to know that at the very beginning. So I think it's very important to have background checks. But I agree with Commissioner Preston because it's not the end all of be all. I'll give you an example. Don King, who owns a very prevalent business in Deerfield Beach. He's a convicted felon, did hard time for manslaughter for killing a person. Tim Allen, Bud Lightyear, right? He's Disney, Pixar. He's a convicted felon for drug trafficking. Mark Wahlberg, we love him, right? He's a convicted felon for deadly assault. Robert Downey Jr., who just got nominated for the third time for an Academy Award, turned his life around. He's a convicted felon. He was a drug felon and breaking and entering. They're doing a documentary tonight for Martha Stewart. She's a convicted felon. And we're going into Black History Month in a few weeks. Malcolm X, I don't know if I'm sure people know, he was a convicted felon. His name was Malcolm Little. He did armed robbery, did hard time in prison, but he was able to turn things around. Now, I could understand the importance of cloaking somebody's past. I could understand that. But I think it's very important if you're dealing with the public or any type of public service to be upfront and transparent, because this way it shows the person's integrity and strength to present his past as well as his future vision to whoever's judging him and saying, hey, this is why I want to be a public servant. And then it will show strength. And if it's not meant to be, then it wasn't meant to be. But it shouldn't be an immediate disqualification. I think it's important to vet and to know the information. And then it's up to the candidate to show why they change your life and why they could actually help by being in this role. Now, the second part of that joke with the elephant is that elephant died from that, have a minute?
1 more minute.
For
Shekhar.
1 more minute. Died from that night of passion, but it provided a lifetime of food for that ant colony. So something good came out of that elephant's death from that night of passion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I'm a little confused here because I was at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and when all the discussion was going on, there were two things that were not, that people opposed about this ordinance. And the first thing, you've rectified that the commissioners will be subject to this ordinance. But the second thing that was just as heated was that this should apply to either all the committees in Deerfield Beach or none of them at all. And it wasn't me, but it was Katie Freitag who brought up the example about the on the Planning and Zoning Board, you could have an embezzler. And Mayor, I don't want to quote you, but I remember you saying something to the effect of, I hadn't thought of that, and that makes sense. And let me bring up another committee, the most secretive committee in all of Deerfield Beach, and that's the Fire Pension Review Board Committee. People on that committee are responsible for not hundreds, not thousands, millions of dollars. And what would happen if somebody on that committee had a past and they were in cahoots with one of the financial advisors that gets paid thousands of dollars of our taxpayer money? So it's not just the example that Katie brought out, but this example here of this secretive committee. And so in order to protect everyone, it is necessary to have this ordinance apply to every single committee in Deerfield Beach. And I have a request that before ordinances such as this are brought for a vote, that more forethought go into what are the potential repercussions of the new ordinances, such as the optics of what it looked like as of last meeting to exempt the commission from the ordinance, and the appearance to the public of only singling out 3 committees when there are many, many other committees in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Michael Lubin, 16 Little Harbor Way in Deerfield. I have the privilege to serve on the Education Advisory Board as its chair this year. And I do participate in the schools and the classrooms. I have cleared my background over the years and had a background check. I've been a retired school teacher, mostly at Deerfield Beach Middle School and union rep for over 30 years. And I think anytime you work with students, especially, you can't be too cautious. Anything could happen, and it does. But I do also think that if you go and do it for the 3 committees, you should do it for everybody. And you may want to consider a background check for the commissioners as well, since it shows that everybody is above board with no exceptions. So it's not a bad idea. It's a bit of caution, and we can never be too careful. So I'll just keep it real simple. I think some of the former presenters laid it on the line that you may want to look into backgrounds and how you want to deal with it. If somebody made a mistake in the past, you may want to consider that or not. That's going to be up to the commission to decide. But I think background checks, anytime you deal with student population and general population, is a good idea to know what's going on by the people who are interfacing with those people. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just make one more comment, which is not about background checks. I was hoping to talk about the data for the schools, and somehow it was in the
Sorry, Mr. Lubin. Thank you.
That's legal, but that's it. Some other time. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Who's online? Thelma Lamar?
Thelma Lamar, District 2, 660 Northwest Second Terrace. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
660 Northwest Second Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I'm on the Cultural Arts Committee. I am an educator. I've done a background check. My issue is that it's not across the board. We're talking about safety. We deal with vendors, you know, who are in interaction with our children, especially the big event we had this past for MLK. If you're talking about that, say we don't know where these people coming from. So if you're gonna isolate, it should be across the board for everybody. And when you're talking about safety of children, it should be done with vendors who's going to be dealing with children. I feel like this is a tactic to scare certain individuals from participating and doing their civic duty in the city, and it's not fair. So if this is something that the commission wants to do, it needs to be across the board, or we can entertain the trainings, because I'm a part of organizations that do training as well to give you a guideline of what's expected in the position while you're there. But to go into someone's past, especially if sometimes we, you know, we're in the day now, people get arrested for the dumbest things, for being profiled or whatever. And I shouldn't have to rehash or live that to explain something for giving my civic volunteer duty to my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Clark Reed.
Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield Beach, Florida. First of all, the Education Advisory Board, of which I was the former chair, we have no guideline that says that we have to go into the schools and deal with anybody in a school setting. The folks that come to the advisory board, that's why we have a meeting, so that principals and those whom we need to speak to will come to the advisory board and give us the information that we're looking for. That information is then sent on to you as the commissioners and the mayor in the form of our minutes. We don't ever have to go into a school or touch a child in any way. And Commissioner Drosky, you know that the night that you're speaking about us giving out the awards and the checks, there are hundreds of people in that auditorium at the high school, various other organizations that are there doing the same things that we're doing. I don't know if they have a background check. So what it comes down to is that I think the commissioners really need to understand the role of the advisory boards that we have, or boards that we have in the city, be more connected to those boards with the minutes that they give you, because it gives you a whole lot of information about what's going on with that position that you have. I don't see the need for the Education Advisory Board to have to go through this background check. But like it's being said, everybody needs to do it. What's good for one is good for all. Thank you.
Anyone else online? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public. Vice Mayor Parnas and Commissioner Preston.
My objection is the following. I'm going to talk about myself. In the early 70s, I was an insurance broker. I worked, most of my business went through the Hartford. Hartford changed my commission rate on auto insurance without telling me. So when I got my check, it was a few $100s short. The next time I had to mail a check in, I deducted that money and mailed them the difference. I committed a crime. 3 years later, I was arrested. Went in front of the judge. Judge explained to me that because I was a broker, I couldn't do it. I had to sue him first. So he sent me home on probation. When I came to Florida, that was in the early 70s, by the way. That's 50 years ago. I worked for one of the casinos. In order to get a license to work in a casino, you have to go through a fingerprint and a background check. And the state inspector called me up and said, you have a misdemeanor in New York in the 72 or 73. But you have nothing on your record since, so we're going to issue your license and you can go ahead and do it. We have nothing in this ordinance that has mitigating a circumstance. If you robbed a candy store of 3 candy bars when you were 15 and can't pass the background check, you're done. There's nobody to say, okay, for the last 50 years, you've been a good boy. You've changed your life. There's nothing in here. There's nothing in the background check. There's nothing in the ordinance that says somebody that committed a misdemeanor, whether it be minor or not, lascivious behavior. What does that mean? Assault. 2 kids get into a fight. One was a minor. It's on the list. You can't, so 30 years later, you're being punished? No. Even the state of Florida that does a background check for certain employees has an investigator investigate that person, whether or not they should receive a license under the state. We don't have that. You're in or you're out. There's no provision for somebody who's changed his life. There's no provision for somebody that's been good for 30 years. Only that 30 years ago, it's on this list of all these things. Oh my God. The hell with him. I say that's wrong. There should be an avenue of appeal. Somebody or committee, the commission, should look at someone's history and say, my God, that was 40 years ago and he's done nothing wrong since. Let's give him a chance. Without that, I can't support this. I can't say that what somebody did 30 years ago, we're punishing him now. Because obviously he was caught, convicted, or he wouldn't be on the background check. So he paid his price 30 years ago. Now we're making him pay it again. We're reminding him that 30 years ago, you spit on the sidewalk or whatever it is, and there's no rectifying it. And I think that's wrong. If you put a provision in where there's a review, where somebody can look at it and look at your life and say, my God, for 25 years, he doesn't even have a traffic ticket. But we don't do that. And that's why I can't support it. I can't see double jeopardy for something that happened years ago. It's wrong. Who are we to punish somebody when they've already paid the price? I would vote no.
Commissioner Drosky, then I'm going to speak because I haven't had a chance to speak yet. Oh, I'm sorry. I shut your light off. I apologize, Commissioner.
All of the examples that most people gave, George Santos and some of the people these people are being compensated. No, but we're not talking about people you're talking about people that want to give up their time, and then we're going to burden them with background checks. These are just regular people that says, I want to do my civic duty. But I think Ms. Lorico actually came up with a good idea. the idea of an affidavit is not a bad idea, and here's why it isn't. Because if you get ready to renew your registration, on the back they have insurance information. If you can't provide it, you sign an affidavit saying you got insurance. So that is something that could be viable. My issue is that we're doing it for some, not doing it for others. We can't detail exactly. Every third week, you're in the classroom with the children doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay, now we need a background check. That's not being said. Only thing that's being said in a general sense, you're in contact with children and others. And for that, you need a background check. The people that are being compensated, you would think that that's where the most scrutiny would be. I just don't think that we need the heavy hand. This is a heavy-handed type of an action. We don't need to do that to people. And so it's not an encouraging thing to me if I wanted to get involved. Even if you have nothing to hide, you're letting people into your background when it doesn't have to be. If we are going to do it, if it's going to happen, then you're able to say every board in the city of Deerfield Beach have to get a background check. But no, not this one, not that one, this one, not that one. It just smacks of something not good.
Okay. Commissioner Drosky.
This is one of the few opportunities where being an attorney gives me an insight onto some of these issues. And I'll tell you why the good for one, good for all argument is a failure under the law, because there's a concept in the law that requires an ordinance, a statute, to have a rational basis for its passage. And that's exactly what I did in this particular case. Is these three particular boards rationally and in proximity deal with the youth and minors and underprivileged in our city. If you were to broaden that to every board, let's just throw every board under this ordinance, throw them all in, well, then you've lost the rational basis for this, because not all of these boards deal with the youth. Not all these boards deal with the public. The Planning and Zoning Board sits at this dais, the public comes to the audience, and they all leave and they go their separate ways. There's no public interaction. There's no public interaction with youth. So if you were to throw every single board into this ordinance, I don't think it passes legal muster anymore. If anyone were to challenge it, I don't think it passes. I don't think it's good anymore. So that's why this was narrowly tailored to fit these three particular boards, because of the background that's there, is that they deal with these particular individuals, the youth, the elderly, and persons of need in our city. But the beauty is, and I said at the last meeting, this commission can do anything that it wants. If any of my colleagues wants to bring an amendment, to this ordinance and bring another board under it and provide the reason why, I'd be happy to listen to it. If you want to bring the planning and zoning board because of X, Y, and Z reason that you think the background check should apply to them, then let's have that debate by all means. But the other boards don't fall under the rational basis that's being proposed for this ordinance tonight. So I will happily bring other boards in if there's a reason to do so, but to throw them in under the good for one, good for all concept, that legally just doesn't pass muster.
Thank you, Commissioner. Background checks is something that obviously you guys know I'm pretty passionate about, because I sat here in the audience forever ago as a regular citizen, watched an employee of the city, Bernard Adams, bring forward background checks to youth football and got blasted by the commissioner and the community because they didn't want it. I don't understand what is the issue here. I am stunned at the rationale and excuses. And quite frankly, I think everybody's flip-flopping and can't seem to make up their mind exactly what their argument is against this. First, it's, well, it's too invasive. Well, then it needs to be for more. And then clearly people haven't read what the rules are, including my colleague, which I'm disappointed. It's pretty clear. It's spelled out, black and white, what some of these things are on here that would make someone not be able to actually serve on these boards. It's very clear in the backup. It isn't spitting on the sidewalk. It isn't a misdemeanor burglary charge that was done 50 years ago. None of that's in here. That wouldn't exclude you at all. Commissioner, you said nothing has been suggested nefarious. That is absolutely 100% not true. If you listen to what was, maybe not by us up here, but certainly by the public it was. It was insinuated that there was a reason behind it. And that was said very clearly, publicly, by multiple people. So to say that is disingenuous, or inaccurate, I should say, not disingenuous, because you're a very genuine person, but it's inaccurate because it was said by the public multiple times. You have 3 boards, all that are most likely to in the future and historically have been around children, the elderly, whatever you want to call it. You want to split hairs public? Here's the bottom line. Cultural committee member. You want an exact example? If I'm there at a city function as a cultural committee member and I'm wearing a cultural committee shirt and I'm selling hot dogs to somebody and some little kids have gone up there and a parent not thinking, being trusting, thinking that that person wearing a shirt is associated with the city and works with the city, assuming probably they have a background check on them. Someone says, hey, can you watch them for a second? Or can you go over there? Can you show them where the bathroom is? They said, hey, I'll show them where the bathroom's at. I mean, that happens. People interact with kids on the cultural committee, with the elderly, with everybody in public. They interact in a very official way. They're wearing the shirt. We brought up the example that the African American History Board has done the same thing. They're very interactive. I mean, it's one of the great things about that board. They're hands-on. They're very interactive. They wear their shirts. They're at the event. They're an official member of it. Okay? They're there. We had an incident, which I made an example of, in which we had one of the board members curse out a vendor in front of the public. And for, excuse me, do not interrupt. Excuse me, do not interrupt. Thank you. But that's what happened. It's a fact. That's what happened. Now that happened in the public. Now let's take that to the next level. If something was worse than that, there would be a problem. Okay? They interact with the public. They're out there in the public as a board member. And the only reason we know about that incident is because they were wearing a shirt and someone said, hey, someone on your board did this. Okay? That's how we knew about it. So we know they interact with the public in a way. The same thing goes with the school advisory board. As a matter of fact, I am baffled at this argument. This is, oh, there's a bunch of other people in the room. They weren't by themselves. How can we do that? Let me just keep it real simple. If I told you that I have a member of the school advisory board that was a pedophile, that was charged for raping a child in the state of Georgia 5 years ago, would you guys have a problem with it?
No.
You're okay with it? What the heck? That's why I'm like stunned, because that's exactly what we're dealing with. How are we going to know that? This excuse is, well, you should know somebody. Well, look, when you have these advisory boards, think about the flip side of this coin. If I am up here and someone from the public says, hey, I want to volunteer for a board, and God knows we need volunteers. And I say, I don't really know you. I've talked to you. I don't really know you. I don't know everybody in the city. There's 85,000 people in the city. I don't know you. I can see your resume. Sorry, you're trying to volunteer. I don't know you, so I want to appoint the board. You're going to tell me that, well, Gans is only appointing people that he likes or he knows. That's what you're going to do. BS. You have people come forward. I interview people that, hey, I want to be on the Marine Advisory Board. Tell me a little about yourself. Never met you before. We talk on the phone. Okay, you get appointed. To say you had to know them, I don't know what their background is. I don't know what anyone in this room who I've known for years, I don't know what a background check is going to tell me about what they did 10, 15, 20 years ago that is as bad as murder, burglary, and to give you a definition of what lascivious is, just so you know, lascivious has nothing to do, Commissioner,
Yes.
with fighting. Do you know what lascivious means? Lascivious has to do with sexual desire. Okay? Feeling or revealing an overt and often offensive sexual desire. That's lascivious. Nothing to do with fighting. If you read the backup, it's very clear what the issues are here. Very clear. And I can't imagine looking at any of these and you guys would be okay with it. Why would you be okay with that? Oh, it's an overreach of government. Are you kidding me? So you're okay with a pedophile being around your kids? And it's a city of Deerfield Beach appointed board member? And that's okay, but you'd much rather not have overreach of government? Almost everybody who had a problem with this has admitted that they have worked with the school boards. I mean, I know a lot of these people have. I've sat on boards with them. I've sat on boards with them at the school level. We all had to do background checks. I don't remember any of us throwing a fit about having to do a background check to work at a school. I don't remember anybody doing that. Oh, but suddenly the Deerfield Beach is doing that. It's an issue. You took the three boards that are very clearly have historically and in the future most likely will have direct contact with those vulnerable populations. Okay. So I am, little staggered that it's pretty common sense, but people immediately jump to some, suspicions on why they thought things were happening. The city attorney explained why the part in there about the commission being omitted was included. And the reason was, and he'll probably explain it better, but I'm going to summarize the way I understood it that night, is the reason it was in there is because other cities that do have this in place had that section in there. Part of the problem is that by putting in there and putting that the commission would be part of it, it might go against what their own charter might say as far as qualifications to run for office. That is a whole different other subject. I said that night, and I still believe that people who run for office, people who are in office, need to have that background check done. I don't know what a level 4 is. I don't even know if one exists, but if it does, whatever, that's fine. Like I said, I want to know who the heck these people are that come out of the woodwork that run for office. So I have no problem with that. The problem is that requires a charter change. Is that correct, City Attorney?
It very likely may, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why it was in there. This faux outrage, this foaming at the mouth aggravation, that how could you exclude them right there, was clearly explained by the city attorney, but no one wanted to listen because everybody come in preloaded with their own determinations and what it was. And it was very clearly spelled out that they were suggesting that race had something to do with it. So our number one priority should be protecting children. I'm sorry. You want to know what, there was good reasons that people have brought up about this that don't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, there are arguments that were made saying there's no guidelines. We don't want it. We do want it. Simply all you had to do was say, hey, look, let's apply it across the board. Great point was made up. It should be on some of our other boards like P&Z, because included in here are things about embezzlement. I'll give you the exact one since we're going to get into the nitty gritty on it, but you can see some things in here that would certainly apply to a P&Z board member that I'd want that on there. But there are certain boards also that we don't necessarily have that control, but this was the first step towards that. And look at the outrage just because it's first step. Oh no, we can't do this. If you look at this list, I don't want any of these people around my child at all. Period. Don't want it. Read the backup. Read it. It's very clear. An affidavit? You're going to sign an affidavit, so you're going to trust a pedophile who's willing to do that, but is not going to lie on an affidavit? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Respectfully, I'm sorry. My personal opinion, that's ridiculous. You're going to trust an affidavit? You're a criminal? And you're going to say, well, I signed an affidavit. Let's just take all that off the board, guys. Let's look at fiscal responsibilities. Everybody likes to talk about fiscal responsibility. Who do you think is on the hook? If I have someone on this board and something happens, if you're not worried about child safety, which you should be, let's look at fiscal responsibility. We will get sued without a doubt, we will be sued if I appoint somebody on one of these boards that has any of these things in here and they do something bad. Let's admit that anything we do is not a catch-all for everything. Anybody who tries to make that, well, you're missing this or you're missing that. Oh my gosh, come on. Let's use some common sense. You're not going to catch everybody. You're not going to catch everything that's in here. People are going to do things. You're going to be at a place where there's somebody there. Someone's going to do something, but you have control of the boards that are on there. And if someone on those boards had done any of these things on here and they do it again, and a child is hurt, or any person is hurt, who do you think's going to get sued? It will be us. And rightfully so, because we didn't do our due diligence. This is basic common sense. Now, applying it across the board, I get it. Now, Commissioner Drosky, being an attorney, he brought up some points. I don't see, I'm trying to think what board may be excluded that really doesn't do that. Community Appearance Board, to me, really don't see that as being something that would need it. But that's something that can be explored. But don't say I'm voting this down because those aren't included. Go ahead and say, I'm gonna step up to the plate and say, here's my idea. You want me to vote for this? It's got to have this, this, and this. At least get on the same page in which you're not talking against yourself and saying it shouldn't be applied. And we want to protect kids, but it's too much. These people are coming forward. I feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for a pedophile. I don't feel bad for relating to sexual performance by a child. Don't feel bad for you. You want to volunteer? Go whatever community is going to allow you to live there and go volunteer there. You're not getting near my kids. Sorry. It's that simple. Now, those who want to pull out the race card, which is immediately what happened, and here's why. Of the 3 boards that were on there, because I heard it directly from people, was the African American Heritage Board. So immediately, whoa, wait a minute. That is, to me, chilling. You have a commissioner who brought forward 3 boards that very clearly, as I've stated multiple times, are the ones that have and will most likely have the most interaction with kids that are there, that were selected. If they had just selected the African American Heritage Board, I would have a huge problem with that. That did not pass the smell test, but that's not what happened. Despite that, of giving 3 very legitimate reasons why, targeted him and tried to say that he was a racist, that there was race behind the thought process. This is a commissioner whose girlfriend is a person of color, and he's doing something racial. I had a discussion with her, and he wasn't there, and I don't know if he knows it, but I can tell you she was offended and disgusted by it, and she's a parent in this community who looked at this and said, "Are you kidding me?" As a white elected official sitting up here, it's a chilling effect. That tells me I can't touch that board with a minor change to that board without being called a racist. Because that's what happened to my colleague up here. And that's where the slightly inferred suggestions from the public were. And that's disappointing. I'm going to defend the man to say that that is absolutely not the reason why he did it. I agree with Commissioner Preston that none of us thought it was nefarious, though the public suggested it and we didn't stand up for it. It doesn't make sense. This is not about race. This isn't about anything like that. This is about protecting our children. Very clear and simple. The rules are very clear in here. We have a background check. You want to expand it? I'm all for expanding it. You want to put on the commission? Let's change the charter. Let's do that. Do it for commission and candidates. I love that idea. We've seen that where people get elected or come forward and you're like, I don't know about this person, but they have the right to run. So if you want a bit of a cross-board, fine, but don't tell me you're going to kill this first step towards that simply because that's not included. I don't understand that. I genuinely don't. Now I have a million notes on here looking at these things. The information as far as people saying that examples of what have happened in their past, including my colleague, none of that applies in these rules. They're not there. That wouldn't eliminate you from doing this. Now, if you want to put in, hey, we want to go through someone to look at this, say you committed a burglary 50 years ago, you're okay. You proved you've done your time because burglary is on here. Okay. If you want to have an appeals board, we've talked about this, we have it on other boards, put it in place. But this argument here doesn't make sense to me. And quite frankly, if you really looked at your arguments, you keep contradicting yourselves. Either you're here for protecting the kids or you're not. Put it in place. You want to make some changes to it, you want to make some enhancements to it, do that. That's our job. We can piggyback on things. We just made a change earlier to something that was suggested, but I don't get some of these comments that have been made. And I'm going to get it all out right now because I took tons of notes. I don't get the outrage to being proactive, to say solution looking for a problem. No, it's a solution looking to prevent a problem. And that's what we should be doing. I don't get that. You know, we start pulling out some of these obscure things that we want to protect. Let's keep it real simple. There are some things in here that I don't want our kids around, and everybody should be on board with that. I don't understand this argument. I don't understand some of these debates on this because they just don't make a lot of sense to me. And if you can't get behind that whole idea, get behind at least the fiscal responsibility of that is put in a protection for the city of Deerfield Beach. Yes, you go to events, and yes, there was a ton of people at the giving out the awards at the school. Yes, guess what? But all those people that were there, they aren't a board member appointed by us. They aren't. I don't have control over all of that, nor don't think I ever would. But I certainly have control of who people are on the board. And I don't want anybody that we've appointed up there to have that kind of background and have that come out. I don't know where you guys were, or if you know the history. We had an issue with a coach in one of our leagues that did something that passed a background check. So you're not going to catch everything. But who do you think they went after first, despite the fact that we had a very stringent background check? And despite that person passing it, still got in trouble. Who do you think they went after? Who was on the news? The city of Deerfield Beach was. Common sense, guys. I don't understand the debate on it. I understand some of the points that have been made, and I really appreciate them because expand it. I agree. Let's expand it to where it makes sense, legally makes sense. Let's do that aspect of it. Let's look towards changing our charter to do background checks on those of us sitting up here. I have no problem with that. But all of this other stuff to try to get around not passing this, I don't understand. I just don't understand. Commissioner Preston and Commissioner Hudak.
First of all, this is not a discussion about race. And if Commissioner Drosky or a friend of his is attacked, that's the wrong thing. But this is a forum of when we come here, we debate issues. That's what we do. That's what we do. And sometimes it gets a little tough. And for you to look at me and say, that's the dumbest thing you've ever heard, let me tell you something. My academic background will match yours and anybody else's here. And I don't take a back seat to that. So the dumbest thing that I've ever heard is you looking at a colleague, telling him that's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. So if you want to match academics, let's do that. Okay. I'm not a dumb person. Okay, I'm not a dumb person. And I want to get that clear. And I will not back down from you or anybody else up here especially when you attack me academically. You're not going to do that. I'm not a dumb person. This is what we do. We come here, we debate. Sometimes it gets a little tough. You never have ever heard me say anything inflammatory to you like that. I've never done that. You take tough positions, fine. That's a part of what you do. That's what you're bringing. It don't have to get personal, but I'm going to tell you something. Don't you think that for 1 second that I'm intimidated by you or anybody else. You want to bring it? Bring it. And we'll be here all night. I'm just giving you a point of view, which I'm allowed to do. We're debating. There's nothing wrong with that. And debate sometimes gets good tough, but I will not endure personal attack. The dumbest thing you've ever heard? Are you serious? Maybe you don't agree with it. You could say that, Commissioner, I don't agree with that. But you don't need to call me dumb. And if you do, we're going to go at it.
I didn't call you dumb, number one. I said it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And that's
I'm the person. I said it.
No,
I'm the said it. So if the person says it,
my opinion is it's a dumb idea. I didn't say you were stupid. I never would say you're stupid.
You said the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Who said it? Who said it? That's the dumbest thing. No, that's the dumb.
Backed it up. If it gets tough up here, then take it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right, that's right, that's right.
I didn't ask you to
But-
back down. I
Okay,
didn't ask you to do any of that.
that's right, that's fair.
I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not calling you stupid. I think the idea is stupid. There's a difference. I've come up with some stupid ideas, trust me. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've listened to 45 minutes of this debate back and forth, and the public has brought up some good ideas. I think Commission here has brought up some good ideas. Some of the ideas that I'm proposing to expand this does include an appeals process, because I do think that that's important. There are people who have made mistakes. There are a lot of things on here that are not forgivable mistakes, but there are a few of them on there that I can understand something happened 40 years ago. That an individual still can contribute to a board. But I'd also like to expand it to any boards that have fiscal responsibility like P and Z and fire pension boards. I think that is also important in protecting the city financially. With those two inclusions, I am definitely for this going forward, if someone were to make a motion.
City Attorney, I think we have limited control over the fire pension board because we only have certain appointees.
That's right. I was going to mention that board and the composition of that board is driven to a large extent by state law, Chapter 185 and Chapter 175, depending on whether you're dealing with police and fire.
But if somebody is appointed to that board, how can the city protect itself to make sure that they're financially responsible and have not had serious financial, whether it's injustices in the previous?
Yeah, I can look into that. I don't know. They may be required to file a Form 1 financial disclosure, like the planning and zoning board members are, for example. I'm not sure. I
Can
see
we
Heather shaking
expand
her
it to
head
the
yes,
P and
or
Z
city
board?
clerk.
I'd at least, we have control over the P and Z board. We can expand it to that.
I think with the appropriate justification in the ordinance that you could expand it.
I'd like to see that as a minimum, and I'd like you to research the fire pension board, see what we can do. Because that is a very important board and a very good point that was brought up by Mr. Hers. And I think an appeals process is definitely something we should also include in this.
We have other boards besides Fireman's Pension Board that deal with our pensions. Is that correct?
I believe there may be a police pension one as well.
I think
Yes.
There's a general employees.
And the general employees
Okay.
pension board.
But I think that's done by the employees. The board, that make up that?
Mayor, I'm pretty certain that the police pension board is the same state requirements as the fire pension board. But the general pension board, I'd have to look at that makeup and any superseding laws that may govern that. But if it's the will of the commission to add that, if it's applicable, we can certainly do that.
To make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with the inclusion of P and Z, Fireman's Pension, and Police Pension Board. And an appeals process. We have that motion, which is looking for a second. I will say this, Commissioner, I didn't mean to call you stupid or infer that you were stupid. You're not stupid. I think the idea was stupid. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, you're not stupid. I know that. And Ms. Lorico isn't stupid. It's just an idea that I think is stupid, which I'm okay to say. I could probably use better words. But that's just the basic outrage at, are you kidding me? And that's the way I feel, because it just, to me, I feel like a lot of common sense in this debate seems to be left at the wayside to get caught up in, I don't know what.
And that's fair.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, the appeals, how would that work?
Who's gonna work it out for second reading?
Okay, for the second reading. Okay, so this is the first reading and the appeals process will be included in it.
The second,
Yes, but
he's got his.
Can you call me? Somebody call on me, please.
yes, I'm calling on you.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes, City Attorney, can you please opine? Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. I'll certainly bring something forward to you for second reading, if that's the direction that the commission gives me. I just wanted to point out that the statutory reference that's in our ordinance, that's in the backup, there is a separate state statute that in the context of employment background screenings for certain state agencies that use that statute, it does give the department head of those state agencies in that context certain rights to potentially exempt individuals depending on certain standards. For example, if it's been longer than 3 years, if you were convicted of a felony, it's longer than 3 years. However, those individuals have to provide, it's the burden on the individual to provide for clear and convincing evidence. There is no requirement for that. So I just wanted to point that out so that, you know, unless I hear otherwise from you, I'm going to at least contemplate mirroring a similar structure, and then you all can certainly debate it. That's okay.
How do we deal with vendors? Would that be a part of it? Because the other day, at the MLK, there were, different people out there. So does this include vendors? It won't include vendors?
The current ordinance before you does not. However, there is a different city code section I believe it's in the procurement portion of the city code, but there's another section that deals with contractors of the city that in the course of their work will be in close proximity to children and to elderly and
they do background checks.
And it requires background checks.
Okay.
For those contractors prior to commencing work. It's usually active work where there's going to be the members of the public. So not necessarily if you're working on, vacant land, but let's say you were going to go in and you were going to renovate, a portion of a park, and maybe the other portion of the park, is open to the public and the public will have access to that park, those types of situations. If you'd like, I can put that in the backup for the second reading of this ordinance as well. So you have.
We have a
before you.
motion and a second on the floor. We have a motion. I'll second it.
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call.
With the appeal approved.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Just so I understand what I'm voting for. There will be some sort of an appeals process?
Yes.
No, I'm asking the attorney.
Yeah.
You okay?
Right, Anthony, answer.
Commissioner, I understood the Commissioner Hudak's motion as follows, that he's moving to approve the ordinance with the following changes. Include the Planning and Zoning Board, and then include the pension boards to the extent that we can, pursuant to law, that the state doesn't trump us on those, including the fire and police pension boards and the general employee pension board, and then also build in an appeals process.
And that appeals process would, if a person had an issue, who would oversee the appeals process? Who would that be comprised of?
You tell me. It could be the commission, it could be a magistrate. I'll need some direction on that. I can bring forward, something to you at the next meeting.
Okay, I will vote for this in the affirmative, provided it's not one person that will be that appeals process, that there will be multiple people on a committee to be able to look at that information. But if this means that appeals process will be comprised of just one person, then that's a no vote for me.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a current appeals process that could be available, but that is a magistrate. So the motion on the floor wasn't that specific.
Second reading will reflect.
Okay.
Well, right now I'm going to vote no. If that appeals process is something that I'm amenable to, then I will change my vote. But right now, no.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Okay, we are now at comments by mayor and city commission.
Thank you. Let's go with District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one comment. Last commission meeting, you know, one of the things I was disturbed with was the number of businesses, especially over by the S curve and on the island that are vacant. And I've spoken with Ms. Maury, who is a director of economic development. Also spoken with a couple of the businesses as far as what things we are doing as a city to try and improve the you know, the economic engine that is over by the city. One of the things that we're looking into, provided that the CRA board approves, is installing meters at the Cove Parking Center to enforce the 2-hour parking. We're designing a mini facade program as an incentive for retail attraction. We're researching the feasibility of payments to the rideshare in lieu of parking. We're also looking at the temporary window treatments for the vacant buildings, organizing a meeting with the property owners with vacancies to see if the CRA or the city can help attract new individuals to their areas. We're exploring working with the restaurants and the brokers to market the area. We're also installing the Pardon Our Dust projects and signs on the piers to let visitors know what the construction is all about, and you know, increase the visuals to try to enhance the area as well. So those are some of the things that we are looking at, and hopefully we'll see a turnaround, and exploring other ideas as well. So also myself and a couple of the colleagues were up in Tallahassee earlier this, I guess it was last week, and we had very good meetings with our legislative bodies, and we came away, at least I came away, you know, positively with the hope that we're going to be getting the financial assistance that we asked for in our legislative wants and needs. Thank you.
District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank Kiwanis West for the very successful MLK breakfast. It went really well. And the African American Heritage Board and staff did an outstanding job with the MLK festivities, the agenda. A great job. And I really want to say thank you to them. Judge Holmes was the keynote speaker, and she did a good job, a very good job. And it was, I don't know if you know this, but the amount of people that attended it was just outstanding. It was a lot of people there, so much more than there was in the last year. So I'm very appreciative of that. But let me say this to any of the people who might have said something to my colleague and to his fiance in a racial manner. Don't do it. If there's something that is racial, if I think it's unjust, it'll come out of my mouth. It'll come out of my mouth. I have no problem telling this commission that I don't think that that's in the best interest of the city, because it tends to lean one way. So whoever said that, whatever the implication was, you were wrong for doing so. And I'm very sorry, Commissioner, that you had to endure that. It was wrong. Do you realize that these guys that sit up here were also very instrumental in doing some things in the Black community to bring that level up, to bring a balance? And I'm going to let you know right now, because I didn't know this, but if someone is saying something to him, I want you to know it and hear it out of my mouth. It will not be tolerated. And I will not let you call any of these people up here racist. We're going to debate. We're going to have challenges, but I don't know one person up here that's racist. And if I did, I would have no problem telling them to their face. You had no right to say anything to him. It was wrong. And it's not representative of what I believe in and what is the best thing for this city. These are the kind of things that actually creates polarization when there is none. So, and I'm in this position, believe me, I've endured racism. I understand what it's like. I was the first African-American firefighter in this city. And if you don't think that that came with challenges, then you're naive. You believe in the Easter Bunny. But I'm also tell you, the people up here care about what's happening in this city. Are we always going to agree? No, we're not. But it's my job to bring to them a frame of mind, an idea that I think that would be best for the city. And they have done some things of which I'm very proud of, which this whole city has been a benefit of, that I've got compliments from other cities of what these guys did up here. No one should have attacked Commissioner Drosky. I'm very disappointed in that. So I'm going to give you my phone number, 954-728-5886. You got an issue with something that you believe is racist, you tell me, and I'll bring it forward. But I will not have people just attacking people in the cowardness of night because you don't have the ability to come forward just to say what you need to say, just so you can make a point that actually is not making a point, just something to say. So don't do it. Don't do it, please. We're doing some things in this city that is benefiting this city in every district, from District 1 all the way to 4. And that should not be interrupted by ignorance. I'm just so disappointed that he had to be attacked in that manner. Let's debate it. Let's debate it. And we can debate it all night. But we don't have to be saying things that is just not true, and it doesn't help our city. And anytime I see it and I hear of it, I'm going to call it out. So I gave you my number. Let me give it to you again, 954-728-5886. You got an issue? Call me. You think somebody up here is racist? Call me. We'll talk about it. But let me go on the record of saying right now, none of them are. So we'll be debating for a long time. That's number one. This city is going in the right direction. And that doesn't mean that we're going to get there easy. But it does mean if we're committed to the cause, if we're committed to making it better, we will eventually get there. We will be a better city. Believe it or not, you may not believe it, but we'll be better even for the heated debates that we had up here tonight. We'll be better. So I would like for you to refrain from those kinds of statements. Should never be personal. Should never be personal. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. District 3.
I've been approached by a number of contractors, developers, and they tell me they're no longer developing in Deerfield Beach. I asked them why. They said, well, we go to Pompano, we get welcomed with open arms. We go to Boca, they roll out a red carpet. We go to Deerfield, they don't want to develop. They find ways to kill development. And that upset me. Because I look at our future. We're not a little town anymore. We have almost 90,000 residents. And we have to go up if we can't go out. We have to stop thinking like a little town. We're in competition with all the towns around us. And if we're going to survive, then we got to wake up and we got to go up. We can't go wide. We have to go up. We need more roofs. We need more people. Because with that, residents, whether they're tenants, condo owners, or whatever, You get development. You get stores, you get restaurants, gas stations, drugstores. That's the life of who pays the most taxes, business. But without people that go to where they can make more money, where they feel they're being treated with open arms. And that's an attitude that I'd like to see changed. I'd like us to welcome these people with open arms and listen carefully to what they want to develop. Why? Because it's the future of this city. We're in competition, whether we like it or not, with the surrounding towns. And we're losing. There isn't enough development in Deerfield. There could be. And that's going to be the life of our future. We have to develop smartly and up. Single-family homes are nice. 8-story buildings that house 80 people are even nicer because that's 40 families spending money instead of 2. And the more they spend, the more we prosper. And so I think we have to take a look, a long, hard look. How do we get contractors who tell me they won't develop in Deerfield? It's too difficult. It's being made too difficult when I can go elsewhere and be welcomed and sought after and allowed to expand. So this is something we have to look into. And they made me see where the future is. And it's more east than west in development. We have to open our eyes and say what is going to be in our future. Because we are, again, in competition with every other town. And we can't afford to lose. So if you see new projects going up, it's for the good of the city. It's for the good of our future. Because as we prosper and as we grow, we become a major force. And we can't be left behind. That's all I have from District 3.
Thank you, District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm first and foremost shocked tonight to learn there's no Easter Bunny. My my concept of Peter Cottontail going forward will never be the same. I do want to thank Commissioner Preston and Mayor Gans, and I'm sure I'm positive that Vice Mayor Parnas and Commissioner Hudak were thinking the same thing. I appreciate your heartfelt comments, but as Ms. Link from the audience said earlier, I can take the arrows. It's okay. I've been doing it for 7 years. I probably shouldn't have to, but as a public official, they come my way. So I'm used to it. I'm a big boy. I can take it, but I do appreciate you gentlemen making those comments. It was appreciated. We are colleagues after all up here, and so I want to thank you for doing that. Last but not least tonight, I want to circle back to number 8, which was on our agenda for tonight, which was the discussion regarding the letter to the school board. It's going to be symbolic, but I think that item is actually very important. I want the school board to know that we're serious about this. I want Dr. Licata to know that we want to engage in a conversation with him. So I would actually make a motion on number 8 to approve the letter sending to the school board, just to be on the record that the Deerfield Beach City Commission is serious about this issue. It's symbolic, but I think it's something that's important, and I would make that motion at this time to approve the letter number 8 being sent to the school board.
I'll second it.
Before we do that, since we're making a decision, is there anyone from the public that has an issue with this, like comment briefly?
When you brought up AIDS, wanted to comment on it, but thank you. Oh, shit. Once I,
On the clock, Heather.
I think a simple, yes, we support it might be enough, Daniel, but say whatever you want.
lost it. So sorry. Well, basically, number one, I support it. Daniel Shinesky, 34 Keswick B.
This is
I
not the
wanna
ant and
bring
the
up-
elephant, is it?
I apologize, what?
It's not the ant and the elephant again, is it?
No elephant and ant jokes. I want to, all right. I want to say, number one, in doing my research about the grades in Deerfield Beach, I did get a prevalent attitude of some of the key educators. And that attitude is, let's just pass them. We want to get these students into the workforce. It doesn't matter. They're probably not going to go for higher education anyway. I don't think that's the best way. I want to bring up what the Foundation for Florida Future, which is a nonprofit, brought up. They said, Florida public education system must remain committed to the promise of a quality education with no shortcuts to success or awarding of participation trophies. So that it's very important to have these standard tests. The high school, or it could be junior high school, or the public school diploma value is only as good as our willingness to measure students against strong standards, not watering down diploma or graduation requirements, because it does not show Florida leadership. It weakens their education systems. So I think that's very important to take a strong stand, and I support what Commissioner Dropsky has said. I had spoken to the chairman of the esteemed chairman of the Education Advisory Committee, and he brought up a great idea. He said, we could maybe look for a mentoring program, mentoring the students with senior citizens, and maybe that could help them with their test scores and their grades. So that's some suggestion that maybe should be brought up. I know the Education Advisory Committee, I'm sorry,
Correct.
I apologize. I know the Education Advisory Committee is thinking about putting that forward. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shinsky. That was a funny joke earlier, by the way.
All right.
Michael Lubin, 16 Little Harbor Way in Deerfield. Thanks for the opportunity to say a few words on that. I know Commissioner Drosky talked about the poor grade results, and as the impetus for the letter to the superintendent. Just to give you a little background, if I may, for a minute or two. And last year, on the testing, learning gains were not allowed, basically. And that was a score of 400 points, which the schools did not receive. As a result of that, the test scores, the letter grades, were less than it should have been, potentially. The state criteria changes the letter grades frequently, and this year it's different standards, different tests, and a different scoring criteria, which the schools have to deal with. My understanding, at least from the middle school, is that through the testing that they've been doing this past year, is they're on track to a much higher grade from a C to a potential B. I'm going to assume the same is true for the elementary schools, but remember last year was a different year with COVID and different criterion. So I know that the middle school at least is trying to empower the parents, and they do feel intimidated. And we're in a situation in public schools where any student who walks in the door must be served. That is not true with charter schools. That is not true with religious schools, and it's certainly not true with private schools. They get who they wish to take, and if students do not perform, then they are asked to leave. And that happens all the time in the public system, where we do receive, at this time of year after this winter recess, many students from the charter schools, because they feel that they were not receiving the education that they should have been, and they come back to the public system. And as a result, we need to deal with, the public schools have to deal with those students who have weak skills and try to make them better. And we have, unfortunately, through the testing, it shows as well in the final result of the schools. So I just want to kind of give that information to you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public?
I should close it.
Yes, ma'am.
Willie Rosetta Graham Bracy, 501 Northwest First Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I would like to ask a question. Do they still have that grandparenting thing for the kids in the schools? Because we enjoy, some of those kids from the past at the Deerfield School, Deerfield High School, they comes over to us on a Monday and we have bingo, and they sit and they play bingo with us, but they like 18 years old and they can't count. They don't know numbers when they see it. If they had that grandparent thing, like working with the teachers in the schools, the kids would learn more. And I mean, they like 18 years old, but they in the ESE class. So they, but one of the preachers works with them now, and he comes up, bring them over there, the bus bring them over there first every Monday, and they play bingo, but they don't know the numbers. When they see the numbers on the bingo card, they don't know them, and they're 18 years old. So they really do need that grandparent thing that they have, that comes out, they go to, the grandparents, people like me in the 70s, to work that can read and write, to work with those kids. Because it's sad to know that they can't count and recognize numbers, and they're 18 and 19 years old.
Thank you so much. Anyone else from the public? We'll close it to the public then. Board looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Preston.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Anything else? District 4? Okay. Couple things. Commissioner Hudak, Commissioner Drosky, myself, City Manager Jonathan Salas went up to Tallahassee, as Commissioner Hudak talked about, to talk to our legislators up there. And it was always educational. It's always a good opportunity for us to interact with our colleagues throughout Broward County that we don't normally get to in that atmosphere. And it was educational, frustrating, but productive, extremely productive, I feel. Every single one of our representatives, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, do a really good job of looking out for the city of Deerfield Beach and making sure that we are getting the funding that we're looking for. We have differences of opinion on some of the things that have been put in place. Commissioner Preston had brought up Form 5, and that being is it 5 or 6 or 6? Thank you, Form 6. Form 6, and that newly passed. I'll tell you how frustrating Tallahassee can be. I was told that the reason that form was put in place, and the way some of these laws come into place, is simple: one person with a petty grudge. Tallahassee passed a law last year, I think it had something to do with semi-trucks being allowed to go into residential neighborhoods to make home deliveries to home businesses, and preempted cities from banning that. I think that was what the example was made. The reason why is someone in the legislature's wife had a contract with Starbucks to supply some sort of pastry, and got complaints from the residents because semi-trucks are going into their neighborhood during the day. So they said, you know what? We're going to put a law where you can't stop it. And if you've tried to stop it in the past, you have something on the books, we're going to preempt it. And it passed. This whole Form 6 is because someone in the legislature got mad at their local elected officials and decided to target them. And the chilling effect has been tremendous on what that is. I'm glad Commissioner Preston brought it up. And I think it's something that we need to explore as a city to get behind that, because I think that is going to have a very chilling effect when people look at it. I mean, if you look at the last election cycle, we had people that seemed to be offended by the mere fact that they had to bring up, questions about residency. This is a colonoscopy. when it comes to people's finances, like as you pointed out, and you're 100% right. And city of Lighthouse Point had their first unopposed elections in decades because 5 candidates that were lined up getting ready to come forward said, I'm not doing it. So those little things that get passed up there when you hear that type of petty stuff that happens that affects us is a huge frustration. Live local is something they're probably not going to touch. Everybody's upset about live local because, you know, it starts out with good intention and gets manipulated and has negative effects. And then people's pride get in the way because they don't want to go back and make tweaks. So hopefully that will still happen, but it was very productive. I especially want to thank the city manager and Jonathan Salas. All of you would be very proud to be in the room with our elected officials, and not just elected officials on the up in Tallahassee. We were in the budget officials from the state. And when you listen to them rattle off just on the top of their head, the statistics that they do, I was very impressed. I was very appreciative of the job they did. And Jonathan and his team have come up with an excellent guide that is perfect elevator conversation when it comes to these issues. Simplified, precise, educational, and effective. And I think that is one of the things that everyone would be proud if they actually saw that or experienced what I got to experience. So thank you all for that hard work that you did. We talked about the things being safer out on the roads and our goal that we're working towards that with Vision Zero. The speeding is still a major problem. We know that. I hope we're still doing these enforcements that need to come out, but we're still seeing deaths that are happening left and right, pedestrians that are being hit. We need to crack down on that. As far as economic development on the S-curve, and I know that was brought up by Commissioner Hudak, it's a great point. It is frustrating when we see the condition, but I think just overall, again, we have to do better with the appearance of our beach. If you go to the beach parking lot where the fishermen park and the employees over there park, those hedges are all filled with beer cans and debris all the time. It just needs to be cleaned up. We need to do a better job of that and be extremely aggressive on that. I still am frustrated with the fact that we're not keeping it enforced the way we should, and we've got to do a better job of that. But some of these things, the dilapidated buildings and some of these buildings that have changed hands, I know there's changes coming. But in my opinion, we need to make a change in economic development. It was exposed at our last CRA meeting, in my opinion, that our approach is wrong. It is reactive, not proactive. We are working with the owners of abandoned properties who clearly themselves have failed to be able to market those properties. That's not who I really want to deal with anymore. Know which properties are abandoned, know which properties need work and where we can fill people in, and go out and aggressively recruit people to come in here. And for any developer that says that they don't want to come to Deerfield because they're not welcome, tell them to have the guts to call me. Because I'm going to tell them they're full of it. What they are is they're trying to do is manipulate what our city is. No matter what, this is still a small village that we have here. We have enclaves in this city that have been here generationally for 100 years, but don't need to be forced out. We have people who love our beach because it's quaint, because it has a small beach town feel, which is hard to maintain in an economy in which we need to compete. I agree, but that doesn't mean that we need to sell out. Those developers who are telling you that, tell them to have the guts to call me. I'll be happy to debate them. They probably won't, but tell them to give me a call, because if we can do something better, great. But I have a feeling that's not what the case is. The bottom line is they want to exploit this beach area that we have, and I don't think that's what we should be doing. So I would be caution. I caution all of us when moving forward with those things, with the changes we're going to need to do in the future. But I think we need to change our economic development approach. I'm dissatisfied with what we're doing. I think we need to make changes in our approach and maybe our personnel on that. And I think that needs to happen soon. City Manager, can you give us an update on the Packer Rattlers?
Thank you, Mayor. So since the last time that they were here, and I think many of you already know that a large donation was provided to them by by a business. They've actually received some more donations, which is outstanding. So on that front, they're doing very well. They've also approached us wanting to do 7-on-7, which is a more contemporary style of football. 7-on-7 offense, not a lot of linemen, and they're looking to do that. They're not asking for more money. They just want to bring that program into the fold. So that's something we're actually wanting to bring forward at the next agenda. I can get them started actually now if I can just get some consensus to bring a ratified agreement forward, because we want to make sure that we include that program in their agreement, just following the attorney's advice on that one. But I'd be happy to move that forward and get them moving so that they can start that sooner than later if that's okay with the commission.
Well, I mean, I think the Miami Dolphins are playing 7-on-11, so I'm pretty sure that 7-on-7 wouldn't be a problem. So I'm not going to bring you guys Steelers into it either, but I don't know what 7-on-7 is, if it's lesser, but whatever they think, if that's what the need is.
Basically all receivers, all skills, and no linemen.
Oh, the Dolphins. It is the Miami Dolphins. It absolutely is the Miami Dolphins. It's all skill players and no offensive. Got it. Okay. So yeah, I think that's not to cut you off, but yeah. You'll have to fill me in a little bit more on that. Our day of service for over MLK weekend, I want to thank those of you and staff who came out for our Habitat for Humanity build. What a tremendous uplifting experience. It's my third build. It's my first in the city. And believe it or not, no one's going to believe me, but I actually praised two people who championed Habitat for Humanity in the city many, many years ago. And it'd been a long time since we built with them. But former Mayor Portier and former Mayor Robb had championed Habitat for Humanity back in the day. And I think, and we talk about dumb ideas and dumb mistakes. I think here's one of my dumb ideas that I did. When that came up, Mayor Robb wanted to jump right in and said, Habitat for Humanity. Didn't want to put it out to bid, see who else was out there. We just went with that. And under advice of some of the staff, I said, no, that's wrong. We need to put it out for bid and do it. Dumb idea. Stupid idea on my part. Because quite frankly, Habitat for Humanity, what they do in that organization is really unbelievably moving. It was, you guys got to go to the breakfast and feed your bellies. We get to feed our souls that day. And I was really, really proud of our staff and the hard work that they did. And no one got hurt. So that's a big plus. City Manager, I do want to praise you. One thing I noticed in Tallahassee, every time we interacted with our school board, the head of our school board, Dr. Vakata, what a great relationship you're developing with him. And I think that's going to bear fruit. City Manager has a great deal of respect for a lot of those people up there. And that was great to see and witness. So I really appreciate that. I want to thank Commissioner Parnas and Commissioner Drosky, or Vice Mayor Parnas, excuse me, for their hard work on an issue that came before the Broward County Commission today. With the expansion of Waste Management's look to do a use change over at the landfill that would have expanded it. Quite frankly, more people should have been outraged about that than some of the things we debated tonight, because I think that was huge. It got tabled thanks to Commissioner Lamar Fisher, who was able to get them to take 90 days off on it to explore it. We're entering in this agreement. We're trying to find out solutions to bring back recycling, find out what we do in the future for our trash, and to actually close off a waste to energy use that is the only spot in Broward County to be able to do that. To me, is counterproductive. It doesn't make any sense, but it shows you the power of lobbyists and big money corporations who want to do what's in the best interest of them and not of what's in the cities. So I thank the commissioner. I want to thank my colleagues over at Coconut Creek, Sandy Welch, John, what's John's last name? Brody, Commissioner Brody. Work with them. We saw each other in Tallahassee because there's no sunshine law amongst us. I had Sandy on the phone and I got to see John in person and we got to talk. I got to talk to Mayor Rich while we were up there from Broward County when we were in Tallahassee. And we collectively were able to rally the troops once we realized this is probably going to get passed, despite all the hard work that the vice mayor did to kill it on the planning council level. So I'm glad that got moved out, but we need to be alert. We need to be aware, and we need to be aggressively trying to fight that in the future to make sure it's in the best interest of the city. Okay. I am blunt. I am passionate. I am not a mealy mouth politician. You know where I stand on things, and I will get in your face and argue. That does not always make me the most pleasant person at times. For those I've offended, I apologize, and certainly to you, my colleague and my friend, because that's not the intent. But you guys know me, and this is what I've been doing a long time, and I don't mess around. And I do get, I probably need to do it a little bit better, but I can tell you this, having doing this for a long time, if I didn't take that approach from the very beginning, we got walked over sitting up here. The old ways, the way things were done, were not the way things should have been done. And we made change by simply being firm, being forthright, and being passionate. So when I have people up here that like to talk from the public and they get offended and they walk out because they bring up a point, because everybody gets up and speaks and everybody's allowed to speak their opinion. I have no problem with that. I could disagree with it, but I'm going to tell you I disagree with it. But I also know if you're full of it and there's a background, there's a little bit of history in what you're saying that's not accurate or not true, I am going to bring it up. Because a lot of people look in the audience and go, wow, I don't know that person. Well, that person said this. What that person might also be saying is not entirely the truth. And I'm going to call them out on it. And they don't like it. And that's okay. But I'm amazed at people that run for office that are so thin-skinned that at one little comment, they want an apology. Okay. Keep waiting for that. I do apologize, though, if at times I don't represent you as the mayor as tactfully as I should. I think I do a pretty decent job of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But for anyone I offended, my colleagues up here tonight, my apologies. We talk about taking shots. Everybody likes to say corruption. Big word. Mr. Hers likes to bring up corruption. Oh, we're all corrupt. Bring it. We're so corrupt. Prove it. Talk is cheap. Big words. Give me examples. There's the FBI. There's the state attorney's office. There's the OIG. There's all these groups that you can go to and make complaints. I don't see anything coming forward because you're full of it. Your opinion, just because you disagree with it, so a decision we made doesn't make us criminals. It's a difference of opinion. But if you think we're criminals, bring it. And if you don't think it doesn't work, oh, we can't do it. That's a coward's way of saying, I don't have a smart enough idea to say that what you actually did is actually criminal. Go talk to Al Capolini. Go talk to Steve Gonot. Go talk to Sylvia Portier. And tell them that, oh, you can get away with murder. Didn't happen. All three removed from office. Gene Robb, right at the end, was hit up with an ethics charge. You have the ethics commission? Do it. Otherwise, shut up. There's your blunt response. Call me a crook, fine. Go prove it and do it. Bring it. Otherwise, just keep running your mouth online. That's fine. That's all I have to say.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Good job. Good job.